Ladies and gentlemen, Aisling Bea. No, it's just a casual conversation.
This is Bertcast.
You know the reason you're on my podcast?
Have we started the podcast now?
Yeah, we've started.
Whoa, God, you move quick, don't you, Bert? don't even do a little bit of light fingering at the start. Nothing, just straight in there to the podcast.
By the way, I know there are a bunch of guys on forklifts. I know there are a bunch of guys that are blowing glass right now. I know there's a guy going through dialysis on his kidney machine.
Yeah.
Who are all going, whoa, what is this voice? I could listen to this for an hour.
Where
Holy
is she
shit.
from? Hey, turn down the sound on this dialysis machine. I'm trying to listen to the podcast.
I follow someone on. My brain is a little fried. I've been partying last 2 days.
Classic you, Bert.
Yep. But my brain is fried. I follow someone who took a picture of you.
Oh.
And I was like, and you're pretty. So I was like, oh, she's pretty. And so I clicked your link, and it said comedian. And I went, I don't know her. How do I
What?
know her?
Pretty comedian? Yeah. I don't know about that.
And so, and
she
then
must be a witch.
And then I went to your thing, and you had a video of two girls dancing to Missy Elliott's.
Oh, they're my favorite thing in the world are dance videos. So most of my Instagram is like people going, "Think that they're doing this song. Where you do? Where you from?" I love dance videos.
I got obsessed with that dance video.
Yeah.
I actually downloaded the Missy Elliott song, and then because it 3, 2, doom, 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 doom,
yeah.
And then I started, and then I was like, I'm get on this dance video thread, and then I'm like, what the fuck? How am I in these dance videos? And then I was like, oh, it's that girl. I go, okay, who's this girl now? So I go back to your link, and I go comic, and I was like Irish, and so I watched you were live at the Apollo.
Yeah, probably was
live
that.
at the Apollo, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, she's funny as shit. And then I was like, oh, I think I might have been going to London that week or coming up, and I was like, oh, I'll see if I can podcast with her. And I texted you.
Yes,
I
yes,
DM'd
yes.
you, and I said, hey, I would love to have you on my podcast.
Yeah.
And you said, it was perfect personality. It was like you go podcast, what's that? And I went, oh, okay, maybe they don't know over there. And so you started breaking my balls, and I was like, oh my God.
We got the concept.
Yeah.
We're outside of American podcasts. Yeah.
And so then you hit me up. You're like, oh, I'm coming to LA.
Yeah.
And so now are you here in LA for
I'm here until the end of March. I'm kind of over and back a lot, so I spend about a third of the year here. But do you want to hear my Bert story?
Please.
Hey, Bert. Do people do that all the time?
Yeah, a lot.
Do they? Yeah.
I never once came
look.
up with a joke. Where's Ernie? I never once could come up with a comeback for that.
Oh God.
Yeah, I know.
It's sitting there though. You could ask your listeners to come in with the best, like every time someone goes, "Hey, Bert," to you, what you do back. But so I'm always doing podcasts, Bert. Don't really have a clue what they are. I don't listen to them myself. Big fan of the audiobook though. The sort of retro podcast, as it were. Someone, I got in an Uber last Friday, charged my phone, and as we were going to the venue, we were doing a gig at the Virgil, and as as we were chatting away, he's like, so what do you do? And I normally say accountant because who's the time to get into it?
Yeah.
But I said, I'm a comedian. And then he's like, I love comedy. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Like immigration always do that to me as well. They go, you like comedy? So who you like? You do the same thing that you like Bill Burr? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't do the same kind of thing as Bill Burr, but it's always him or what's that other comedian? I can't think of it. Anyways, we get into it and he's naming out some people and he's like, oh, Bert Kreischer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I'm doing his podcast next week. Then I forget to take my Uber, or I forget to take my phone out of the Uber, and he drives away. So I spend the night with all of these people. I'd say I've got 3 people logged into my iCloud now on their phones who can just access all my sexy pictures. I was trying to find my iPhone, blah, 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 blah. And that night, he managed to get in touch with my friend through the Uber app, find me, and arrive at my house, where he waited outside in the cold until my friend was able to email me on my laptop, and he brought back my phone. So I'd like to say a big shout out to John, the Uber driver, who listens to your podcast and loves you. And
Shout out
very
to John.
kindly. Shout out to John, who's also a musician.
Oh, nice. John, hit
very
me up.
sweet.
John, hit me up. We'll play some of your music on this episode.
Yes.
Oh, you got to get here quick, though, John. John, hit me up. I'll play some of your music on a future episode.
Yeah, because that would be impossible. Hey, John,
literally
if you get in
impossible.
touch with me before you hear this, you'll be able to play your songs on my podcast.
John, if your ears are burning right now.
Oh, God, please just tweet me.
Dude, shout out to the only reason, I mean, not the only reason, but one of the major reasons I got this last special, or the one I just shot, was because of an immigration guy at the Canadian border.
No.
Yeah.
Why? What did he do for you? Should I ask?
No. The guy who runs Netflix, Robbie, was going through immigration.
Yes.
And he was just shot a special in Canada for someone special.
Yeah.
And the immigration guy said, "What do you do?" Guy says, "Work for Netflix." And the guy goes, or no, he goes, "What were you doing up here?" He goes, "I was shooting a comedy special." And he goes, "Oh, are you a comedian?" And he said, "No, I work for Netflix." This guy goes, "Oh, you got to give a special to the Machine." And Robbie's like, "Who's the Machine?" He's like, "Shit, you don't know who the Machine is?"
That's what the Uber driver was talking to me about. He goes, "Oh, he's the Machine." I'm like, "What is the Machine?"
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like the story I'm famous for.
This is what he also told me in the Uber. So I got a lot out of that Uber driver.
Yeah, I've had people tell me they've heard people telling that story. I've had people say, "I've told your story," saying it's my story at a party. I appreciate it, man. It's a good story. But yeah. So, but I when I first saw you, I went, oh, this, I was already into this song, this Missy Elliott song.
Yeah.
And this whole thread. And then I saw your stand-up. I was like, she's great. And so I'm so glad you came to do my podcast.
Thank you so much.
But then I did the research about you and I was like, oh shit,
Yeah,
she's not going to like
great.
me.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't be a fan of myself. I'm glad I am myself, so I don't have to watch me.
No, so there's a bunch of things I know about you that I don't know what they are.
Oh my God, let's go.
Okay.
Can I also say at this moment, I'm just currently looking, we're in the back of Bert's garden and he has chickens, and it's the first time I've seen anything that resembles a farmyard animal, because I grew up in quite the countryside in LA and Los Angeles. Just like chickens walking about. I love it. And your eggs, your own eggs.
Yeah.
It's so the opposite of like, party guy, to have like, and I also raise my own chickens.
Oh, I'm
It's
this
just
close
like,
to making a cocktail.
out of the chickens.
So your sister.
Yes.
These are the things I'm going to go through. All these things I know about you.
Okay.
And I'm dying to the things that I go as a comic.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to know more about this person.
Oh, great.
Your sister says very funny, outlandish things when she's drunk.
Oh, she's just... My sister hates me talking about her, which is why I continue to do it.
Is she older or younger?
She's younger, but people have started asking who's older. And I'll be honest, I don't mind that at all. I just really looked after myself, and that's what happens when you do. You Sinead.
Your sister's name's Sinead?
She is called Sinead. And she's actually flying in tomorrow, Bert, into LA. Why? Because she assistant designed Beauty and the Beast, the costumes, and they've been nominated for an Oscar. So she's going to the Oscars on Sunday.
Are you shitting me?
I would not shit you in your own house, Bert.
Oh my
no.
gosh.
Yeah, so she's coming in tomorrow and she's going to be here on Sunday for the Oscars. On IMDb, you can. Sinead O'Sullivan. Again, she hates when I say anything. If you heard her name and you're on the dialysis machine, forget it.
By the way, the one guy on the dialysis machine is having the best day of his life.
Oh my God, listen, I want a dialysis machine now. We can be like, who was it? Was it the Oprah Winfrey show when she was like, you get a dialysis machine. You get a dialysis machine.
You know that's how Spanx became big?
No.
Yeah, I just researched Spanx today because apparently I went to college with that girl.
You went to the girl. Thank you to that girl for giving me a hug when I needed one, but around my waist.
Yeah, she was a Tri-Delt at Florida State, and that's a sorority.
Ah, okay.
She was a Tri-Delt at Florida State, and I just read all about how she came up with Spanx today because I follow this guy, David Goggins. I talked about him earlier. David Goggins was on Rogan the other day. Mm-hmm. David Goggins lived with the guy who owns the Hawks. The guy who owns the Hawks is married to the girl who created Spanx. And the girl who created Spanx was a Tri-Delt at Florida State.
You know what you're a bit like? You know, in A Beautiful Mind, except it does work out, when he starts putting all of these connections together.
Yep. Ooh, your sister's cute.
Oh, okay. Well,
blonde hair?
Enough of that. Yes, blonde, yes.
Oh, I bet she.
I told her she was adopted, but unfortunately she's not.
She is. Yeah, she's adorable.
Oh, totes adorbs.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of her. She's an extremely accomplished person. But again, because she's such a like go-getter and extremely capable, amazing designer and very creative person. She also designed one of the Black Mirrors from the last series. You know, the one about, I'm not sure if you watched them.
Don't start me on Black Mirror.
Okay, I'm not going to start
Black
you.
Mirror.
Whoa, Bert. But did you think the
stand
costumes on the ones where they all had to rate each other in the second series?
No.
Did you think they were great?
I didn't see it.
Did you not see that one?
I didn't see it.
I love it. I hate that thing I've never seen.
I saw everyone talked about this Black Mirror, about the one Black Mirror one where the girl and the guy hit the guy in the car on the bike.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen." And I watched it. It's an hour long.
It is.
And I'm
quite
like,
long.
Okay, I get it.
There are I mean, you know what? The great thing about them is there's so many different types and kinds that there's something in there for everyone. There's also some rom-com ones. There's some dark ones. There's some action ones.
For real?
Yeah.
See, I like time travel.
Not all of them. What ones are kind of time travel-y? Some of them are kind of set in a not too distant future, so you'll like those ones.
I saw Metalhead. Metalhead was a good one where the robots are chasing the people.
Oh yeah.
That was a really
Charlie
good one.
wrote that one. Charlie Brooker wrote
Who's
that.
Charlie?
That's his. Charlie Brooker. So they're all Charlie Brooker. So Charlie Brooker is quite a prolific comedian in the UK.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, he's like one of the biggest. It wouldn't be necessarily a stand-up. More, he does like a slightly political, kind of now because of all the Black Mirrors he's produced and written. He does this thing called Screen Wipe, where he talks about the most watched stuff and how the year went. So he'd be kind of like almost more of a John Oliver type of character, where he reviews stuff in a kind of comedian.
It's interesting that you use a British guy as an
know,
American example.
I know.
He got in trouble for saying "we" the other day.
We?
He said something about America and said "we" as America, and Americans lost their shit. They were like, "Bro, you're not one of us."
Whoa. I love the things people will jump on. Don't you?
Can I tell you what's driving me nuts? And I know you'll have an opinion on this.
Yes, please.
And by the way, be careful, because what you did say at the beginning of this podcast does apply somewhat. I will say collectively to everyone listening, we are a tad bit mouth breathers. Like I want to talk about feminism in a second. I want to talk about the letter you wrote to your dad. These are all things that are stuff that are right up everyone's alley. But this is a careful one in America, because I think everyone here is open.
What does rabid mouth breathers mean?
We just breathe through our mouths. Just like an idiot, pretty much. Goes,
okay, but does it mean anything bigger?
No,
like, is it a metaphor for a type of person?
Just a meathead.
Okay.
Meathead. I hate hypocrisy, and so
babes. So do I. No wonder we get along famously.
Yeah, and so like I don't have a problem with people boycotting companies for the NRA. I do think that they are these companies that have deals with people that are members of the NRA. Totally makes sense. It's what America's founded on. I don't think it's going to change anything. I think that the gun lobbyists, there's too much money in guns. There's way too much money. You're not gonna move the needle at all. But what you will move the needle with is if you attack celebrities that support guns. And famous celebrities are like Whoopi Goldberg is a big NRA supporter. You know?
Is she?
Yeah. And I was like, and in my head, by the way, I don't want Whoopi Goldberg attacked. But if you want, go after the people where...
what a spicy thing to come into a podcast and have their own shoot.
Yeah.
Aisling, do you believe celebrities should be shot? Whoa, Bert, I liked it better when we were talking about chickens in Ireland.
But it's like one thing to see... I'm gonna use Amy Schumer because I'm sure she's someone that probably has tweeted about this. But it's one thing to see my liberal comedian friends go after Delta. That's fucking... Yeah. There's no one... They're not hurting anybody.
Do you know what it is? It's very interesting because this is going to sound like a toodly-eye Irish thing, but we don't have guns in our country. And they just use sticks. Haha. The army do, but we're a peacekeeping country. And... why I was talking to your wife earlier on about Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and there's this other show I love on Netflix called Ugly Delicious. And why I love it is it's this Korean chef who goes around and talks to different communities about their food and stuff like that. And it feels like a show that is not judgment or not too left or not too right, but is using the things that America brings it together. Because I've been coming to this country for the last 4 years, and I pop in and out for 2 months at a time. And in the last year and a half, it's been nuts. Every 2 months I've come back, something else has happened that has really just pushed people apart, and it seems like America's really bleeding at the moment, and everyone feels so divided and divisive, and it's like there isn't a culture of a little bit of trust to put yourself out there and put your hands up on any issue.
Oh, no one does that.
No one's willing to just put their hands up on anything that happens. So for example, I like paying tax. I believe I've started to earn more money now, and there was a time where a person came to me and was like, oh, I can sort you out with a few little bits and bobs, and I was like, no, like I want to be wise with my money and clever and not be stupid, but I also want to pay my tax, because I pay tax so that someone who can't work will be able to get back on a ladder, and then you pay it down. And that is not me losing out. That might be me losing a bit of money, but I'm hopefully gaining a better society. And I think we've all lost the run of ourselves in America and the UK and Ireland about what we lose when we give something. We feel like we're giving up something and losing something rather than seeing what we're gaining. And you always see that in communities where one person puts their hand up and someone else goes, okay, I will too. We actually gain something better. And that really feels like what's happening in America at the moment, and why I love the show Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. It might seem like such a tenuous link, but there are loads of people going, do you know what? I'm just going to trust this guy for a second. I'm going to put my hands up and go, maybe I'll put that slightly to the side and just listen. And it happens with gender as well. It happens with what's going on at the moment. That just, we're not giving up power by listening to someone, or by kind of putting down our arms for a second. And it feels everyone's so scared. Because also, I think when you allow people into a country, for example, some people are like, it'll like dilute our culture, and you're like, no, it'll strengthen the bits of the culture that are worth keeping. And I feel like with gun control, for example, in this country, that's, I mean, so far away from what I grew up with, because I grew up with 0 guns and still as much policing and 0 gun violence. And you see the way things are in Japan or in Australia, they still have guns, but there's control. That it feels like here, if you were to go through all the checks, the right people will get guns then. And if you feel you're one of those people, then you will be okay. So but this fear that, well, once they start that, then there'll be this sort of everyone, the mistrust of the other, realising that we're all the same, is really, it's just burned through this country in the last year. And it's been really fascinating to watch, especially from my point of view of flying in and flying out all the time and seeing it at comedy club gigs and the different types of audiences you meet, what people laugh at. Then 2 months later, they don't laugh anymore because it's too close to the bone.
Yeah.
Then it's really quite fascinating. And a big thing is if we can just put down our arms for a second, metaphorically and literally in so many ways, and then hopefully the right things will come to the surface if we just allow it a bit of space.
Do you do the road much at all?
In the UK I would. Here I pretty much land into LA, and I'm just in LA.
Yeah.
But I've played in New York and San Francisco. Festival there.
You got to go to the middle of the country.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. What's interesting is when I gig in New York, being from Ireland, everybody knows what that means, because spots are shorter in America. So I would normally go up and do half an hour in the UK, or most people do 20 minutes to half an hour, whereas here they tend to be 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And when it's only 10 to 15 minutes, or sometimes 10, you don't have time to explain what your country is, and so it's always helpful when someone knows immediately. And in New York, as soon as I go out and start speaking my accent, everybody knows just a few cultural norms that comes with being Irish.
Yeah.
Over here, there's still, because there isn't a huge Irish community on the West
not
Coast,
even remotely.
it's still like, is that Scotland or where is that? I'm sorry, what is that? Is Braveheart Irish? And you're like, no, Colin Farrell. Oh yeah. So you have your
Colin
markers.
Farrell's gorgeous.
He's a gorgeous man.
We were looking at a house together, not together. But
You and Colin Farrell.
we were both. There was an open house, and he was in there, and I was
Bert.
blown away.
By his handsomeness.
I was fucking following him room to room.
Will never be prouder than the time Colin Farrell went out with Britney Spears for a day. Like, that was a great day for Ireland. Everyone's like, yeah, go on Ireland, come on. But yes, where were we? Colin Farrell. Oh yeah, so when I gig when I gig in LA, it was a different sort of experience getting used to it and working out how you come on stage and realize, I walk around with my face and my accent all the time, and you forget that, it just might be a bit of a different sound, and you have to give that a little bit of time to rest. But I think actually the more East Coast you go and the more Midwest sort of Irish, there's bigger Irish communities like in Chicago and than there is on this side of the country, on the West Coast. Are we West? Yes, West Coast.
I wish I had more gigs this month. I'd offer to bring you out with me, so you can see what like a real American comedy, because it's very different than LA, New York. It's not.
But that's anywhere. That's any big city with a diverse group of people. The comedy clubs are going to be very different. So what I found was, I remember I had this bit about like a small town disco, and it's really funny because even though it's an Irish disco that you go to, that bit works for anyone from a small town.
Yeah.
So your material like people from a small town or in the Midwest are the same, and people from the middle of Ireland and the middle of the UK, in that when your references, or you're not near one of the big cities that makes political changes or where cultural influences come from, you tend to have the same points of references or like a similar type of lifestyle and stuff like that. So I think that I would probably find that very similar to doing gigs in the countryside in Ireland.
It would be interesting to see like in like Sacramento.
Yeah.
Sacramento's, it's like such a, this country is really interesting, and a lot of like comics, in the States we have like club comics, and then we have like alt comics, like the alternative rooms that are more like Nerdist and UCB. Yeah. Those rooms are a tad bit more forgiving than like even like the store. But then that store is pretty rough, to be dead honest with you. Considering like Punchline in Sacramento, it's like that's legit working class.
Yeah, I love the Punchline in San Fran. I've done that.
Very different.
It's really nice. So that's very different, isn't it? But isn't it also? Do you know what it is? Is just with any of those gigs, I think we underestimate audiences in general.
Nope.
I think I really do.
Nope.
I honestly, because I play a lot of the club gigs as well, and again, you have a way of. Bert!
You have to be. I've had this conversation with people. There are times that you will write a joke about race where you are. You are
I'm not
skirting
saying
the
everything
line.
works, but in terms of a joke, of course, a joke, you're like, that just doesn't work here. Yeah. But in terms of a set and managing an audience, you just have to learn what stuff to go out with. If you go out to an alt gig and you immediately start talking about liking reality TV, people are going to be like, ugh, or the difference between men and women. Yeah. But you can wrap it up and do it in a different alternative way.
Yeah.
But in the same way, you can talk about weirder stuff with club audiences, but you just have to make sure, like I have a bit about depression at the moment, and you'd think that's more an alt type of thing than to go to a comedy club and talk about toxic masculinity. But I actually wrap it up with like, I had this idea when Kanye West was very unwell and he went into a mental health facility. When it came out, they said that he had been, one of the causes was that he was jealous of Beyonce. So I thought, wouldn't it be a much nicer way to wrap up depression, to rebrand it as just being jealous of Beyonce? Because then you could just go like, I can't come into work today, I'm jealous of Beyonce. Oh my God, I totally understand that. I totally understand being jealous of Beyonce. Like, I'll come back in when I feel a bit more Rihanna. And like, you can take an idea that might seem like a bit of a bummer to talk about at a gig and package it in a more mainstream way. Like you can, I don't think it's always like, they just want to talk about.
You don't have to dumb it down. You don't have to go in and just go like, who wants to talk about Olive Garden?
Yeah, exactly.
I would never say that I ever take what I find funny and try to repackage it in a more digestible way for the middle of the country. But there are times where you do have to be aware of where you are.
That's okay, but even doing that, you're not losing out who you are, because if you were to go to a dinner party with a load of friends, sometimes you don't start changing into a tux, but you might make a bit of more of an effort and put on a jacket. That doesn't mean you're not being Bert in his sweatpants and hoodies and baseball caps anymore. But you could wear but you could wear a baseball cap with maybe nice new trainers. Like you can do versions of yourself where you're not giving away your voice, but you're like, I do have to respect where I'm going here. I always remember in Steve Martin's autobiography, he talked about how, because I don't like dressing up for stage. I'm more comfortable in flat shoes, a pair of trousers and some kind of sweater jumper top. And but I also understand that on a Saturday night, if you're going somewhere where it's people's Saturday night and they've paid $20 into a gig, you and you just kind of rock on stage like you've barely washed yourself, they have paid money, just a suggestion that you appreciate it's their night out and they've gotten a babysitter and they've bothered to come out.
Yeah.
So, you know, brush your hair, put on a nicer version of your sweater sort of thing.
Wait, do you know that? Are you aware that I perform shirtless?
No, not at all. But you know, like, do you brush your shirt?
No.
Do you brush your chest hair, for example?
I fluff it.
Yeah, exactly.
I make sure my necklace is straight.
Yeah. And then it dangles nightly.
As you said that, I was like, I'm charging $35 a ticket, and I don't even wear a shirt.
But that is like, that is more Saturday night for me, because that's like Chippendales. That's like, take it bloody off, mate. And what kind of hat do you wear when you're on stage? Do you wear any hat?
I got this one in Detroit.
You wear a hat but no shirt.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about, Bert. I'm doing a queer eye for the straight guy on you now. You don't have to change that you perform shirtless, but maybe don't wear your grubbiest hat if it's a Saturday night out.
There we go.
You wear a nice baseball cap, and they're like, that's his character.
Nice jeans, nice shoes.
Nice jeans, nice shoes, no shirt.
Yeah.
Sounds like $35 worth for mama, if I'm honest.
$35? I love your accent.
$35. I said the TH.
So how long have you been doing stand-up? Because I know you kind of exploded on the scene.
It happened very quickly.
You won like the big
it was a newcomer competition. Yeah, I started, so I've been an actor for like 15 years.
And successful.
Paying the bills, which was nice. Do you know what it was? It was quite free. It was like a baptism of fire, but also I'm very grateful. But at the time I was a bit overwhelmed. I started stand-up and within a year was on TV. But I'd been an actor like for a long time.
So take me from beginning to where we are right now, if you can.
So
like
went to university in Dublin to do like French and philosophy, and was in a sketch comedy group there. Then was like, I'll never do comedy again. And I went to drama school in London to learn how to be a very serious actress. When I came out, acting didn't go too well, as in I just wasn't getting work. I was getting little bit parts and stuff, but not the dream.
Yeah.
And I started script writing, and then I got a job in a show that Sharon Horgan was making, where I played her sister.
Who's Sharon Horgan?
Sharon Horgan has a show with Rob Delaney called Catastrophe.
Oh.
It's on Amazon. It's done quite well. Do you know Rob Delaney?
I do.
Stand-up? Yeah, he's one of my pals as well. And so I thought to myself, he did.
Yeah, I read that. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I knew him quite well. He was a beautiful little boy. And to anyone out there grieving, you should read Rob's post, because it's quite beautiful. They are, I mean, I don't know, it's not my story to tell or anything, but Rob is an amazing father, and they are a testament, like what I was talking about earlier with love, to what love can do. Like Henry was very unwell for about a year and a half, and to go into that house all the time and see the amount of love and energy and bounce in the house despite what they were going through, and it has been hell on earth, but and even for their other two boys, and how loving those two boys have come out of it, and how loving Henry was so funny. He was such a funny little kid, and he could only he just about started learning sign language, and he was funny, and he just cared, and he got on well with all of his nurses and everyone. He was just a great kid, and that came from their love and energy. And when you see that in a house, it speaks it's just such a giant testimony when you think about how like love can build a bridge. Oh really? Can love pay your bills? No, but it can help you when you can't find a way to pay your bills.
Yeah. And
that making that as the foundation of any house or any home or any society, you never lose out. It's not a hippy dippy idea. It gets you through the bad times. It's not saying that if you're loving that'll kind of fix practical problems.
Yeah.
But God, it lifts up your spirits when you are there. And it's just, I felt so privileged to be involved in their life.
Rob's a very, very, very funny dude, and he's a very insightful guy. I read his post about getting sober. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like when I was like, oh, this guy's more than just a really funny guy to follow.
Yeah.
Like one of the funniest follow Twitter accounts.
Yeah.
I think he kind of defined the brand of Twitter.
Yeah, he really did. He was one of the first kind of people really like, oh, this is my content. This is where you find me the most.
Yeah, and then he went out to London and started doing a show for Amazon.
Yeah, with Sharon.
Sharon.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sharon.
So that's the show.
So you played her sister in that show?
In a different show. And and I thought, oh my God, this show's gonna be on TV. If I don't start stand up now,
How old were you
before
at the time?
nobody knows me. 25 or 26, I think.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I hadn't even started stand-up yet. I started at 26.
Well, that was, sometimes I get jealous of people who started earlier. Like I know people who started at 18 and I'm like, God, if I could have started.
Of any of those fucking people.
Yeah.
Live a life first, then talk about it.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear
that's true.
anyone under 30
But
speak.
imagine just going out and not caring what people think. Like I did care. I was so like aware of things.
Oh, because you were on TV.
Well, not yet. Like the show didn't go anywhere. But I started thinking I'll do this before I get super famous. But
it's not
that's
a bad
not
way
how,
to look at that.
But I did because I was like, I won't be able to go out and. It's really important to have time when no one cares who you are, to go out and test your voice and mess around with jokes and fail and die on your ass without anyone paying to see you. But it kind of about 8 months later, I won this comedy competition, and it was called So You Think You're Funny, and it's kind of this prestigious newcomers one in Edinburgh, and a woman hadn't won it in 20 years, and for some reason the media just went bloody nuts about it, that I'd won it. And then I was on TV about 4 months later, and I just became so overwhelmed because I was still like trying out my 20 minutes and finding my half an hour, or like, and to all of a sudden have people. And nobody knows what those competitions are. So you're like, to win that, I just did 10 minutes. But people come to see you like you're some big road comic who's been doing it for years. Yeah, exactly. But
and
also,
and the UK is a little different in the sense that it is a smaller. I'm a fucking idiot. It's a smaller country, so to get on TV, you can start selling tickets pretty quickly there.
Once you're on TV, it does start shifting tickets, But also the way comedy works here, everyone works towards a tight 5. In the UK, everyone works towards an hour. So when you start out, you work towards an hour.
It's
and you
almost
do an
like
hour of stand up.
It's a better system.
I think it is as well. Well, do you know what happens with in the US? When I do my sets here, it makes me think, Aisling, make that joke better and tighter because you've less time. But then I often see people with great ideas and I'm like, I'd love to hear about that idea, but you've only 10 minutes. So how do you expand out a story or really stretch it out? You know, at the start of your career.
The system's broken a tad bit because I do see New York comics and LA comics put out hours and they've never done the road. And you're like, you need to be like this last hour I did. I was on the road from November 1st until this past Saturday was my last show.
Yeah.
So that was like November, December, January, February, 4 months every fucking weekend, adding shows, 3 shows Saturday, 2 shows Thursday, 2 shows Friday. I'd go in and do Wednesdays places, I'd do Sundays places, but I had to run that hour, and that's the big mistake.
That's what Edinburgh is. So you do it for the month of August in Scotland. It's the biggest comedy festival in the world, and you do it 30 times in a row, and that's after having previewed it maybe 20 times, and then you get to Edinburgh and run it 30 times in a row, and it's soul destroying, but God, you feel bulletproof by the end of it.
I bet.
Because you meet different types of people, and you're having Wednesday gigs and Friday shows and bank holiday weekend shows, and they're all different types of audiences, and Scottish audiences on a Saturday who are absolutely hammered but great crack, and they heckle, versus like a Monday audience of maybe the pensioners who are getting a discount on the Monday and they're like, is this bit about hip hop? Hooray! And you're like, death to the so it is a good way of testing out your stuff. But then also I have a real problem with every time I have to do shorter sets, I really struggle because I'm just like, how do you even get in
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Goodbye.
I did 7 minutes the other night, and someone was like, and I was like, I can't even do 7 minutes.
Yeah, you come out and you say, hello, that's my time. Thank you very much. All the best.
Yeah, but I'm also more of a long form storyteller.
Yeah.
So like I get kind of caught in a place where I'm like I went up to the store the other night, and I was just doing 15 minutes, and I was like, wow, the story I'm working on is 11 minutes. So I'm like, how
do you get in? You have to warm them up first.
Got to warm them up, and then you go, all right, guys, sit still for a second.
Yeah.
And by the way, everyone else is doing rapid fire. Everyone else is doing 15 minutes, jumping all over the place.
Hey, you know the thing about the stories, and I'll bloody say this in a podcast, I am shocked by the gender disparity at the Comedy Store in 2018. Like, shocked. Like, I follow them on Instagram.
Yeah.
And sometimes in a weekend there are 60 men and 3 women. That's not even funny anymore.
But I don't think there are.
Because the Comedy Store isn't hard to do.
It's How is that possible?
I
don't think there's that many Okay. I'm going to say something in this. You said that, so I'll reply with this.
Yeah. No, because what I'm saying is fact as well. So what I'm saying isn't you've got all different types of comedians, all races and religions.
Yeah.
So you've got people from Muslim backgrounds, you've got people who Asian backgrounds, you've got like white Democrats and Republicans. You've got all different types of people, and you've got alternative comedians, people doing voices. It's not just all like bros, where my bros at? It's not. You've got Judd Apatow who does a lot of and I know he's a celebrity, so it's different.
Yeah.
But you've got softer people. But you've literally got Ali Wong, Nikki Glazer, maybe Sarah Silverman, and these are just the 5 that appear.
Whitney,
they never appear all week. Whitney, Eliza, and then who else is there that regular and they might be over the course of a month. And there are women selling out Netflix shows. I don't understand.
I don't know that there are a ton of women selling out Netflix shows.
Oh, no, but with Netflix shows.
I don't know. There are a ton of women with Netflix shows.
But, I mean, there will be soon. I've just did the 15-minute specials.
Yeah.
And we were 50-50. In fact, I think there was... And all of those comedians were all like forces. Like, none of us are shy retiring flowers doing kind of like bits of poetry or a ukulele about where my boyfriend's gone.
But I think everyone that's up at the store has an hour Netflix special. I think what they're looking at, the people, like, trust me when I say I'm probably.
But this is the Netflix special thing. The Netflix special is the Netflix special, and they're just the women. So to get on the Comedy Store in LA, which is just a comedy club. No, as a woman, you have to be famous.
Yeah. Or as a man. You've
got comedians there who just go up, and I'm not saying they're not great, but the disparity. It isn't like it is. I'm not talking about 10.
Let me put this in perspective.
But just let me finish my point.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not saying 10 female comedians and 20 male. I'm like, oh, one day hopefully that'll be the same.
You're saying 5.
I'm talking
and 30.
5 and 60.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. And also that you have to get a 1 hour Netflix special and be that famous to get on as a woman, but as a guy
and as a man.
But as a guy, look through all the people there. There's maybe 3 or 4 people with Netflix specials, maybe headlining the weekends.
Yeah.
But everyone else, the other say 50 men, don't. They do their little specials or podcasts or different bits and bobs.
Yeah.
But there's no, like, I've never been able to get on anywhere other than the Belly Room, and I'm like, I can sell out anywhere in the UK. Got a Netflix special coming up, like there, or even Catherine Ryan, who's got a special. She can come in and do little bits and bobs, but not like
no one. I don't know who Catherine Ryan is.
It's a worldwide Netflix special that's done really well. Again,
she's
done Conan a bunch of times.
But hang on. But here's the deal, and I'll say this very flatly.
Yeah.
You need to be able to sell hard tickets.
Yeah.
To be working at the store, and I don't know Catherine Ryan.
Yeah.
But how big are the theaters she plays in the States?
Oh, big. Like so her Netflix special did really well.
She would easily work at the store if she wanted to.
Yeah.
She could very easily.
What I'm saying is that I understand if that was a store to headline, if that was a policy for everyone.
It's not.
But there are like 50 male comedians over that weekend who don't sell like that.
I was arguing
at
a principle, and I think I know what you're saying. Is that
if
there are 10
yeah.
guys that are actually just working that aren't famous, aren't anyone.
10, I'd say 40.
Okay.
So because if you just had to have that, you're like, great. What we don't talk about is a Comedy Store. We go and talk to the Netflix. We make sure that there's more of a in terms of who gets specials and blah blah blah, or just the industry in terms of how we foster talent. Just let me finish. So in terms of how we foster talent, we look at the problem in the greater area. But the Comedy Store is literally the only place in LA that does not reflect what's going on. It just doesn't reflect it, and it does in terms of skin color and religion, but just not gender. And I cannot believe it, because there are names who go on there, but it's not. If everyone had to pass by that test or had to have at least X amount of TV credits or whatever, you'd be like, okay. But that's not, honestly, once you start looking through their Instagram account and look through their weekend line.
I just look to see what time I go up. And by the way, I will say,
you'll start to go, oh God.
I just looked at their website 2 seconds ago for my buddies going there tonight.
It's easier if you look at their Instagram, because they post the weekend's lineups. So they have 1 to 15.
So this is the original rooms lineup for tonight. Rogan, Whitney, Chris, David Spade, Jeff Ross, Eric Griffin, Theo Vaughn, Sherry Shepard, Jason Gillern, Famheen Awar, Sarah Tiana, Court McCowan, Jack Knight, Sandro Iglio, Lucas Hurl, Sandy Danto. So I think
that's one room. So that's what,
that's
2?
That's the OR.
2 out of 15. So and the original room is
that's like the main room.
The one to the left
room.
As you go in.
The main room's most produced shows.
Yeah.
So the store doesn't really have anything to do with that. That's people coming in, taking over a night, them promoting it, and them usually putting up their friends and famous people to try to sell tickets. So that in that room, I've had rooms where it's like being me, Norm Macdonald, David Spade, Joe Rogan, Chris D'Elia, Whitney, Eliza, like every single one of those is a theater act.
Yeah.
So like there's not Segura, Christina. There's like a huge. But that's produced.
Yeah.
But in the OR, I know what you're saying. But there.
It's just not that it's 5 and 10. It's 2 as opposed to 13, and that's even
but I think
2.
That's more
some nights it's
of like how many women get into comedy. Like there are a lot of men.
I really don't think it is anymore, Bert. Honestly, I'm there.
I don't see a lot of
community.
Women. I don't see a lot of women doing stand up, but by the way.
But are you always going on up at the store? You're always going up at the store.
I go up at the store, but I go up the store.
That's probably the problem.
But we could also argue the store is the greatest place in the world to do comedy right now.
I don't agree.
There's not one better comedy club in the world better than the Comedy Store in LA.
Oh my God. Like,
and then the LA.
When you're looking at it from a point of view that basically isn't representing your voice or your gender, it's really hard to see that. You're like, how you're seeing one thing. You go to if the Comedy Store was reflecting what's going on in the world, imagine if for there was only 13 there were 13 white people on every bill and only 2 black acts. Every single, or only 2 people of color on every single, and that's not, women are half the population, and that was what reflecting. You'd be like, well, that would start to send out a message.
But what percentage?
That would start to send out a message the wider, going, don't get into comedy.
No, but
because
you
will have to have an hour Netflix show before you'll even be allowed on a normal Thursday evening.
I had to sell tickets before I get up the store.
Yeah, but there are loads of people selling tickets. That's what I'm saying.
No, but I'm going to put it. I'll bring it back one step. But like, trust me when I say, there are not that many people selling tickets. There are a lot more than there ever have been, but like there are very few comics going out on the road and making $100,000 in a weekend. Mm-hmm. Very few, and myself included. I'm not making $100,000 in a weekend, but most of the lineups I'm on, those guys are making over $100,000.
But if you're an important venue as well, this is where the Comedy Store is so well known. Yeah. And I do feel it's really sad that there isn't a responsibility there to bring up new comics. Yeah. You're like, you can hop on anywhere if you're Judd Apatow. So if you only need 2 or 3 people to sell a night like that, why not start to reflect outwards?
Because then what about me?
What about you? There's and you can always hop in as well. But like there is the fact that there aren't more well-known comedians in LA, of which there are loads going up regularly there. Like that, there's not. Yeah. So like,
the store is a very complicated place.
You want to go up? Yes, you're famous, but are you booting a famous woman off because they'll definitely have 13 men there?
No, I would.
So what about trying?
I am definitely taking a white man spot. I am not taking a woman's spot.
There are lots of white man spots, so don't worry.
There are a lot. Oh no.
There are.
Trust me, my spots get taken from me.
Yeah,
I'm competing
but imagine that there are no spots for you. So imagine that there is no one coming in taking yours.
But I don't think.
I'm glad we're having this discussion because it is really interesting to hear from your point of view. It's just, as an international act who can sell out stuff in the UK.
International comedy is very different than American comedy. American comedy is a different beast than. Trust me when I say, American comedy is a different beast.
But no, I'm saying as a UK act coming in who can sell out stuff in the UK, coming in, I feel like I'm looking at lineups from the 70s. I'm sitting there going, what?
Yeah.
No, the Comedy Store. Are you? And I look, because I follow them on Instagram, so I'm constantly actively looking now. Every time they normally have like 3 pictures on Instagram, a bunch of pictures, and you can look through original room, belly room thing. And when you constantly do that, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm not talking about the big Saturday night gigs. You're going, Jesus, this is boring as hell.
To me, I love this. I know you're a feminist, and I want to have this conversation.
You're a feminist. I'm sure you're
a feminist.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course I am. But I'm
it's
also
about
a realist.
representing and I completely get what you mean about money. I completely get what you mean about status and about the Comedy Stores for famous people. I get that, but
not famous people. Just the greatest comics in the world are working there. Like in the world.
But then
in America, not in the world. I mean,
stopping-
obviously, anyone we're not booking South African acts
Yeah.
and then flying them over to perform there.
But
who's living in LA? Those are the biggest comics living in LA and argue the world. Like I've seen like Chris Rock, David Spade, Dave Chappelle up every single night.
But there's this interesting thing. I suppose this is where it falls into people are always like, oh, you want to be that? You just got to work harder. There's an element of, and this is what I'm talking about, putting down your arms for a second again, of not allowing people, you can't be what you can't see. And if the Comedy Store is supposed to be indicative of what's going on in culture right now, and you don't make an active choice to go, do you know what? Women are making fucking money. Bridesmaid had to fight so hard and had to get a man to produce it to make sure we go, women make money. Those specials all sell out. Women make money. Like, women want to come and see women, and we make cash and we make dollar.
I think the women that are making money are definitely working there.
Yes, but in terms of the bigger industry, all you need sometimes is a chance to get in the door. And then it's like people are like, oh yeah. So if you don't have more women on your bill, what are you saying outwards? And sometimes it's about going, oh, maybe that person isn't as famous as Joe Rogan right now. But you know what? I'm going to make sure there's one more space there and it's 4 or 5 instead of 1 or 2. And actually, that'll allow those people to be in a place where then they go and get their Netflix specials. And we were the place that started it. I'm not talking about putting open mics on, but people who are doing it well enough. So that's what Netflix are doing, for example. So I just did a 15-minute Netflix special, and they had in total 16 acts doing 15 minutes. Now 15 minutes is such a small amount, but all of us are pro comics. There was no one on that.
I agree.
Whether we did a good job or a bad job,
I think
all
I saw
of
the
us,
list. I saw the list who did that.
You saw the list.
I saw the list who did 30.
Yeah, there were, and you know what they did with that? It's half women, and I think there's one straight guy on it, and it's I think it's half people of colour, if not more.
Yeah.
And there were loads of people who probably submitted that who are just as good as me or just as good as someone else. But you know what they go, we are backing the cultural change, and everyone on there knows what they're doing. And
I just sat here literally 53 minutes ago with a guy who is massively talented and is feeling like because he's a white man there's tons of us and he can't get a
and
look.
I understand it must be really hard because in general
be based on merit,
but this is always the Ashley shouldn't be based on merit, and I totally get that. It's so hard when you work in a creative industry or you work in anything to feel like, oh, I've just lost my thing to diversity. But there have been times when my parts that I've auditioned for I know went diverse, and maybe I would have been brilliant at that part, but actually, to be honest, from a moral point of view, we need to see more people of colour on TV who aren't just playing hoodies, drug lords and refugees.
No, I agree.
And so I had to lose something to for that story to be told in a better way, and that's where we are now in this world. And it's really hard.
So,
no, but it is.
How about hear my argument out? Okay, say that the Comedy Store says you have a brilliant idea. We're going to take 5 spots every show. We're going to make sure
5, yeah.
And we're going to give 5 women shots.
Yeah.
Then what will happen is myself, Tom Segura.
You'll work a bit less.
No, we'll just start going to another club.
But you won't give up the Comedy Store.
No, we'll do a little bit there, but then we'll go over to the Ha. And me, Joey Diaz, Ari Shafir, Tom, Joe will say my buddies are over there.
But you wouldn't do it in protest, though, would you?
We won't do it's a necessity. So,
but it'd be good for you to work somewhere else as well.
No, I can work wherever I want, but I choose to go to the store because all my friends are there, and it is also the best comics in the world happen to be there. So when I'm working on a bit and I come up with something on the fly, and Jeff Ross or Norm Macdonald pull me aside and go, hey man, if I were you, think of it this way. I like having the accessibility to all the brilliant minds in the business being in the same room. Hold on one second. So say we all start going to the Ha, or say we all start going to the Ice House. So say exactly what happened is when they kicked Rogan out of the store and everyone stopped going there, the store went to shit and it almost went under. Because of one person. Because of one person and the chance.
I don't understand what happened with Joe Rogan.
So Carlos Mencia, I can't even say his name right now. Carlos Mencia was accused of stealing material. Joe Rogan confronted him on stage and said, "You're a thief, and we're artists here, and we don't stand by thieves." And Carlos was more famous than Joe, and the store sided with Carlos, and so they banned Joe, and Joe stopped going to the store.
But
and
that is a protest there. So that is a protest let me just, for moral reason. Yeah.
Continue to finish. So then, people, all Joe's friends stopped going to the store, and all the store comics at the store started becoming. It just kind of got really fucking shitty, and then. Management took over and they called and they said, Joe, we want you back. And Joe came back. And Joe, by the way, has the most popular podcast on the planet probably right now. And so he also is friends with all these guys. And then Joe comes back, and then it's part of it's coincidence, part of it's not, but it starts blowing up. But hypothetically say the source said we're no longer going to do this based on we're just going to take 5 spots and give them to girls every night. It doesn't matter as long as they're girls, 5 spots.
No, as long as they're good.
That's not what you're saying.
No. But there is. You're
saying. Hold on. You're saying. You're telling me.
But we're talking about the idea that you're like, where are we going to find 5 good women in LA
for every fucking.
Yeah. Oh my
God. By
God.
the way,
easily.
No, because it's not just 5. We're saying every show for every week.
Yeah.
That's
people can double up.
That's 35. That's 35 spots for women.
Can you imagine if you were saying?
No, you can double up. You can double up. But you're saying 35 spots for women. We definitely now need 20 of funny women that are equal to the ones you're taking away.
Can you imagine saying that about black comedians? Where are you going to find 5 black comedians if there was space for, say, 5 people of color every show?
I can argue this 9 different ways, also with black comedians, but there are certain economics to this business. They're running a business. They're not running a social. They're not running a college. They're running a business. They're trying to make money at the end of the day.
I completely see your point.
And so if they take away 5 spots that say theoretically I don't get, right? And now, by the way, I'm one of the bigger comics in the country, and so if I can't get a spot there, and I go, well, fuck, I'm going to go here, and I can sell tickets. I can move hard tickets.
So
there's not a lot of comics who can.
Such a perfect discussion, Bert, because I really like you, and I'm very fond of you, and I can see that you're a very good guy. And you're talking to someone who, again, battles in this industry and also knows I can sell stuff, but sometimes things take so much slower because they'll go, oh, we'll commission one thing from a woman and 5 things.
By the way, I'm on your side on this.
This is, and this is exactly, so this is a really good chat because it's also good. Again, we should be having this chat because this could make change rather than us all battening down our hatches.
I'm more open ears than not on this because there are.
So what I would say is, if you take, for example, and I understand the idea that the Comedy Store is business. If you look at the Joe Rogan situation, that was on artistic merit, a protest in a sense of people stopping go there because that is really important. Stealing material, all we have to sell, what pays for our mortgages are our words and our jokes, and someone else takes that, you're taking money out of someone's pocket, and that is so that is actually a creative protest. And again, technically the Comedy Store shouldn't be, if you're saying it's a business, it shouldn't be somewhere where you can have a creative, but that is a creative protest. And you guys didn't go there anymore because you're like, no, actually we're siding on the side of this, and it's important that we stand down on this. Something like 5 more spots for women. If you had to go, I would like to think that if that meant just one Friday a weekend, you were doing one less spot at the Comedy Store and you had to go somewhere else, you'd be like, do you know what? It does help out my female comedian pals. And that actually helps bring them up.
I agree. But
also, you wouldn't be doing that. You wouldn't be doing that on purpose. But the idea of, I suppose, the idea of equality coming at the cost of, and I'm not being, this might sound irreverent, but I don't mean it at all, but just to flag up what you're saying, the idea of helping the industry, and it would benefit the industry, it benefit all of us, having more diverse comedians to hang around with backstage and testing your material in front of female audiences, people of colour, your jokes are not just the exact same people who look like you, only benefits our material. Like it's only better. It's like going on the road. But the idea that the cost of that would be maybe not getting to do stand-up as many times in a weekend with your buddies is sort of not, that is exactly, I suppose, the purest form of privilege, and I don't mean that in a reverent way, or that of course the it's best thing in the why I love being a stand-up is I love hanging around with my pals. I love being on a gig where I'm with my friends.
If they said you and Catherine couldn't do shows anymore,
Together.
We don't want you guys together, but this club over here will totally let you do it. Don't you think there might be a night a week where you'd be like, do you want to go to a spot together? Like, let's go hang out.
Yeah, but we would also be able to pop on at other ones. We wouldn't have to go, if we normally do 3 in a weekend and they're like, oh, you only get to do one, be like, oh, well, I'll just see you at that one. By the way, Catherine, on Sunday, will you keep an eye out on this new joke I'm working on? Like 3 instead. I
think you're missing the one point I'm trying to say is not that I want to do stand up with my buddies. I go to the store because it is where the brightest mind. I feel the brightest minds. Trust me, I've been around. UCB is a great place to do stand up. There's some brilliant people in UCB. Nerdist, amazing. The hang isn't quite the same that you get at the store, in my opinion, but it's amazing, brilliant minds everywhere. There's some clubs that definitely pass. But what I'm saying is if they took 35 spots out of the week away from just everybody, right?
It's not everybody, though, I think.
It'd have to be black comics, white. It couldn't just be white guys. That's fucking racist. Yeah. You can't just go, no more white guys. We're adding just women. Like it's got to be guys.
But it's
got to be just guys.
I think that's the funny thing about the fear sometimes.
No. Why would you say white guys? Why wouldn't you just say men? Like if we're talking women and
I do. I feel I was only using that as a comparison for if we were to say.
It seems like you're punishing white men if you go, we're taking 5 spots away from white men. You're like, hold on, wait, what did white men do?
No, but
it's men in general.
It'd only be 3 more, but also it wouldn't be. That is what I would say is the Comedy Store lineups are all different colors and religions.
Yeah.
But gender wise, it's not reflecting the world.
It's pretty male heavy.
It's just not the world, and also the audiences as well want to hear stories. The great thing about stand-up on any night, it's a really boring bill. If you had 7 Irish comics, you'd be like, that is a boring bill. Or if you had somebody with all the same stories, that's
no.
Yeah.
Trust me when I say the fact that it is male heavy has made me a better comic, because you do see, I'm following other white men often, like Chris D'Elia or Bill Burr or Joe Rogan or Joey Diaz. I'm following Sebastian Maniscalco. And so you have to separate. You find that a lot of men can write from the same place sometimes. So for me, I this last hour I just did was like, it needs to come from an original place. I need to really find my voice. I need to dial into who I am.
Yeah, and I want that as well for me. I want there to be other female comedians on there. Yeah. So I'm like, oh God, we're doing the same. And actually that's what happened when we were recording our Netflix specials in Atlanta 2 weeks ago. I was like, shit, I've got some similar bits to some of these other women. I'm like, oh God, I better like work up my game and other things. And I was delighted to get what you get all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. Also, there's this big fear, we're going to take away 35 spots from white guys. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
I'm saying
just
give us a little bit more of a chance.
Take 35 spots away from men, that's totally fine. But what I will say,
that doesn't even make it balanced. But this year,
if you're running a business though, say it's your money that you invested in the Comedy Store, if you're running a business and you find that these now 35 men are going to the Ha-Ha, and Tuesday night's hot at the Ha-Ha, and now their Tuesday night's blowing your Tuesday night away.
But I think there's like an idea that if you put, and I think this is the core of it, which kind of feels a bit insulting, if you put a few more women each night, that you're running a business loss. And that's what I'm saying to you, is if you allow someone to come up through the store and actually do really well on that night, people will get their money's worth and they come back the next night, because we will work harder. You've no idea. When you go out, I'm like, fucking hell, I'm going to make you laugh. Do you know why? If I don't, people are going to see this as a risk that you put me here.
No, I understand that. But so then, is it your argument that there are the same number of female comics as male comics in this business? That it's apples and apples. It's 5,000 females and 5,000 males.
Not at all. Of course not.
So what do you think?
If you give. So we had a big debate in the UK about quotas on panel shows. So guys don't really have panel shows here, but they're big in the UK.
It's like where you have like 5 people on one side, 5 people on the other side.
3 and 3 normally, and a host.
Like
and
never mind the buzzcocks.
Yes. So they're the sort of things I suppose I came up on and regularly did. And because of those quotas, I was able to get onto them much faster than maybe if I just come up the normal way. But also, I now know, me being on them, even if I was, and I hope I never was, bad for one show, a young female comedian will watch that, go, I can do better, let me get up there. If you don't see anything that you can be like, for example, I'm like looking at these bills going like, I'm doing very well in the UK. I'm looking at the Comedy Store going, there's no point in me trying to get on there because clearly they don't book me.
Why?
Because you look at the lineups and you go, there's no.
Well, that's
that is
unfair.
too. But that is because also.
Why wouldn't you just say?
My bookers have been trying to get me on for 2 years at the Comedy Store. And I have I'm with a big agency over here, and it's just impossible. It's like. It's really hard for women to get on at the Comedy Store, and when you look at the lineup, it's hard to go to
a booker because it is a.
But I've done the belly
system.
room. We all know each other. I like all the comedians. I know I've gigged in every venue in this town for 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm on TV. I've done At Midnight, and there's a Netflix special coming out. I'm on shows that are on Netflix. And you're like, oh, but you just don't really. And you look at it and you go, there's no, clearly that's not even an option. My application will be put to the side there because that's not, and that's what I mean about it. Imagine if you just, and again, I know what you're saying, like a Comedy Store is a business and it doesn't have to be a college. But I run a night in the UK, and I was made aware, as all of a sudden booking my own night, how hard it was to make sure my lineups were diverse. So not gender balanced. That's really easy. There are male and female comedians who can sell gigs so bloody easily, and also I was selling them under my name, so it was fine. And so I was trying to make sure none of them were all white lineups.
Yeah.
And that was kind of hard, not just because of course, the numbers in comedians, but it felt important because if I don't do that with race on my gigs, how am I supposed to say to other bookers, how are you not doing it with gender on your gigs?
Yeah.
But also I realize that there aren't enough, I'm not in enough mixed clubs where I see people of colour in the UK smashing it. And they are. And then once I started going out and looking, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like such an idiot. And I see there's an amazing black comedian, she's Canadian, called Dana Alexander, and I had this gig of pretty much all TV people, and Dana's maybe done one TV thing in the UK, and she brought the house down, and I felt really stupid thinking that was my space I'd left for maybe someone who needed a bit of a chance. And I'm like, oh my God, how's anyone going to follow Dana now? She's like so amazing. And in general, that again, putting down your arms for a second and going, any of those comedians, just allowing a little bit more space. And it's never, I'm looking for half and half. It's a little bit more space over the course of 2 years. Then you bring up people and you make them the stars, and they were there at the Comedy Store smashing it at weekends, and then someone spotted them to give them a Netflix special. But keeping the gates closed,
I don't know if they're closed. Adam is the booker, and he is one of the sweetest guys in the world. And so I only got past to the store like 2 years ago. By the way, I had a TV show on the air for 7 years. Yeah. I was a nationally touring headlining comic. I'd had a Showtime special. I'd had a Comedy Central special, both hour-long specials. And Bill Burr and Al Madrigal walked me up to Adam and said, Bert should be passed. And Adam said, no. He goes, I am backlogged. He was like, the way this place was run.
Of course, and I understand it. In LA, there are so few spots. And I'm not saying I deserve one, by the way.
Well, I think you do.
But I think
you definitely, I don't see why you wouldn't. But I'm not looking at it going,
you're
not trying to open the door for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a guy named Guy Branum, who's like a gay comic. And he said the same thing about The Cellar, that they weren't opening the doors to gays and women.
And sometimes this conversation is just worth putting out there as an idea of a seed to sow. So just because sometimes, for example, one of my friends who's British Indian said to me, like, you just don't see it. And and I was like debating. I was like, no, I don't think that is the way. But then once I started seeing it, so I'm on this show called 8 out of 10 Cats, and I'm a team captain with Jimmy Carr back in the UK. And of course, I by the end of the second season, I got to make it gender balanced, and the shows were always much better because you had a balance of voices. You didn't just have me, the only woman, but also I'm an Irish sort of weirder type of comic, but I have to represent all women. You then people who are quite like rude, people who are quite political, just all different type of voices, and everyone, it made the discussions more interesting. It just makes for a better panel show if you have a variety of voices. And then I started looking on, like, at the colour of our lineups and going, this does not reflect Britain. We have to sort of change for the good of the show and to up our audience and to make us more relevant. We can't sit here with this big white show every week. But until my friend had said it to me, we all look at everything through our own prism. Your poor friend, who's not getting the opportunities he feels he deserves, is looking through it as a prism of someone who's losing it but works really hard and is funny and knows his own worth. Mm-hmm. I'm, of course, looking at through my prism. And as a female comedian who works and has to battle a lot for really boring reasons, but I've always been funny. Like, I've never not been funny, and that just doesn't go anywhere. And I see all my friends and all the people who make me laugh, and most of them are women or the female in the community who are selling out shows, and I'm just like, yeah, and the cash is there.
By the way, there are not a lot of women selling out shows in the United States as compared, obviously, to Britain.
Well, this is where
that is just a fact. I can name the females who are like. And by the way, I'm saying selling out. There's a thing in this country.
And then you wonder, is that like what's keeping that from happening?
I think
it's
that's
not
America.
That women aren't.
I think it's America.
No, it's not, because this country is actually way less sexist than the UK.
For real?
Oh my God! And the audiences here love women. They actually don't kind of care when you come out. And I found it, like, I work a lot harder in the UK than I do, and in Ireland, than I do here. Like, Americans love their female comedians. They really do. And they nurture them, and the audiences are great.
But we're talking
here.
About selling hard tickets.
Yeah.
Like, it literally is, no joke.
But then, Bert, what's stopping that from happening?
I don't know. It's definitely not me. It's definitely not me.
Of course it's not
okay,
you, Bert.
I'm defending all men here.
But this is where I'm saying, how do we translate that? Women are as funny as men. That's
I've enjoyed females equally males. To males. Exactly. I've never once said or ever felt women aren't funny.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel the opposite. I've actually gone and said the best thing about Twitter is that it proved to me how funny women are.
Exactly.
The funniest people on Twitter are women.
What's happening in the interim? What's happening in the in-between bit that's stopping that from getting to that cash place? And that is that closed gate. And sometimes it's only someone going, do you know what? 2 or 3 more a night. And that is
okay, hold
what
on.
I mean.
Okay, then let's back it up one step.
Yeah.
There are a lot of guys, myself included, who will tell you they got their break by working a door at a comedy club.
Yeah.
And there are not a lot of women where you hear that same story.
But they're like, you've done the shittier gigs. You might not have worked the door.
No. But I did the shittier gigs too. I did the shittier gigs too.
There's a version of that as well. But I also,
and that is the thing at the store, is that everyone that's coming up through that system is working the door. That is they're like, fuck it, I'll do anything. I just want to get on stage. That passion, and I'm not arguing that men have more passion for comedy than women, but there are a lot of women that are like, well, fuck, maybe I'll see if I can. I know some women in particular, I won't name names, that would never work the door, but they're like, I wouldn't mind doing,
but do you
at
think
midnight
that's because,
and getting in that way.
But do you think that's because you're like, yeah, I could work the door here for 15 bloody years, but there's still only 2 women on the bill, so what's the point of working the door? There's no chance of me literally getting in the door or metaphorically getting in the door.
I think, quite honestly, if you had come in, if not now, but if you had come in at 25 years old and walked into the store and said, I just want to get up on stage here, I'd like to get a job working the door and work my way up like everyone else, I think that you would definitely be. I mean, I know that's not how Eliza or Whitney came up. I don't think they worked the door.
But then can you also get good in another place where you've been respected and you can get the work and you can do it?
Not at the store for a very long time.
Anyways, I feel this discussion has gone on long enough, but it's been very interesting, and I'm glad to have it.
I like to have this. I want to have more of these on my podcast, because someone like you, you're not going to not tell me your opinion.
No, but also I am willing to listen to you, and I completely get what you mean about working hard, and I think that's even really hard for the immigrant story in this country. A lot of people who've been here for, say, 20 years and had such a tough time when they come over have this big thing of going, but these new people who come over, they have to have an awful time as well. And I really understand that sentiment, but at what point can we let that go a little bit? Why that story has to be the exact same for everyone. So yes, someone might have worked the door in the 70s, but times are changing and the world's changing, and you go through different types of struggles. So you might go through a different type of struggle as you struggle isn't comparative. You can't always go, you need to have the exact same form of struggle as me, or else you haven't had a tough enough time. And I know what you're, and I know that's not what you're saying.
I blew up very quickly in this business.
And I know
I worked the door
saying.
for 6 months, and Will Smith
someone might say,
me.
oh, if you didn't have a podcast, or if you know, and there are other ways. A lot of comedians are finding their voice and their audiences through podcasts, and they can headline something now, but they work bloody hard at their podcast, and I don't like plugs and sockets and having a recording equipment in my house, so I'm not going to do a podcast. And so there are all different ways that you can struggle. And what's nice about America is that it's entrepreneurial. You can, if you can't get on at the store, you're like, why should I work the door? Maybe I'll go and start my own comedy night, and I will work really hard in that way and run my own venue.
That's how the alt comedy scene started.
Yes, exactly. And so that is, I feel like sometimes
where we could argue a lot of women gravitated to that.
Yeah, and
they were like,
is
this is not this misogynistic bro community that was happening in the early 90s. This is more of a female friendly, like emotion friendly, like experimental place to do stand-up.
Or even just not even emotion friendly and female friendly. Sometimes just like open to the idea that you're allowed in there, and open to the idea that your stories are as valid as someone else's stories there. And that's all it is. And it's this year in Edinburgh, there was the big prize in Edinburgh this year. So again, there's thousands. It used to be called the Perrier Award. Now it's called something else because Perrier stopped sponsoring it. But it is that big award. So it's a big award for comedians, and it's launched loads of people's careers. This year, there was 9 nominees, which was the most of any year because there were so many fantastic shows. And there were 5 men nominated and 4 women. And the newspapers, and I'm not talking about the National Enquirer newspapers, this is like the Times and the Independent, reported women outnumber men this year at the Perrier. Despite it being 5 and 4.
Was one transgendered?
No. This was literally cisgender, males and females, 5 men, 4 women. And newspapers reported that women outnumbered men, or girls are on top for the first time ever. And that is so insulting.
Yeah.
So incredibly insulting when it's I can do nothing about it. I woke up as a woman, I can do nothing about it. But I also woke up funny and worked really hard at my career.
Yeah.
That was how it was reported. And the same, like, that having 1 or 2 more is all of a sudden, whoa, there's an influx. Whoa, Jesus. Oh my God, here they come.
Well, when you said that to me about the 15 minutes, that it was 1 male on it?
No, not 1 male. It was half women, half men, mixed genders, mixed backgrounds.
That sounds like a lot to me. Half women, half men sounds like a lot of women.
Yeah.
Because you're right, I don't see that at the store. I don't see it at the Improv either.
And also,
I don't see
honestly,
it at the
Bert,
Laugh Factory either.
These lineups were exciting.
Who were they?
You had who different people? You had Sabrina Jalise. Do you know Sabrina Jalise?
No.
Oh my God, she's amazing and a brilliant MC. Michelle Buteau.
No.
Oh my God! See, this is the thing.
Yeah, but I'm also 45, and I'm also
on the road a lot.
Yeah, and I'm not hanging out. I'm definitely not doing 7-minute spots. I'm definitely not doing. I do 15-minute spots, but here
Where
and there.
else do you go up other than the Comedy Store?
I only go to the store, maybe the haha. But I have 2 children. I'm a grown up.
None of those things are, because loads of people have kids, loads of people have jobs. I think it's a lot more to do if you're just on at one place in LA and then you go on the road on your own. Yeah. You're less likely to meet people. Whereas if you gig at a couple of different venues,
I'm not hitting all the clubs. Yeah. I'm definitely not going to UCB.
And I don't think that's anything to do with children or anything like that, because loads of comedians have kids and
it has to do with
for you maybe personally.
Yeah, for me, because look, Rogan's up all the time. He's got kids. My kids are 13 and 11. I feel like if we're going to be really honest right now, I feel like I fucked them up by traveling for 7 years on my TV show, and I feel like I never spent enough time at home. I can't stop doing stand-up because that's my passion. That's what I love. It's how I make money. I need to do it in LA because I need to stay sharp, and I need to make sure that I'm writing at the same level as everyone else that is my peer. I'm personally.
And I would say try going to a variety of clubs and seeing who else the voices
that's pointless.
Out there.
I'm not going to the Laugh Factory.
No, I'm just saying. Just as a project, one weekend perhaps.
I don't have the time.
Yes,
I don't. It's just not like my experiment. Like the club I would go up to that I would be interested in was, say, the Comedy Store in London. I did that one night. I thought that would be that would be something interesting to me. I don't have any interest in doing an open mic at a laundromat, or like doing like I wouldn't mind doing So
There's some great gigs at UCB, at Meltdown, sellout gigs that are always sold out.
I'm not getting booked at UCB. I'm not getting booked at UCB because I'm a white man. What fucking spot do they have for me at UCB?
Oh my God! I think you're saying this without actually going. You're like,
no,
man,
I've been to UCB a bunch.
There are lots of like.
I've been to UCB a bunch. I've lived in this town for a long time.
But you're only getting one place.
Yeah, but yeah. Do you?
There are loads of white guys on a UCB.
Oh, there's definitely loads of white guys, but there are loads of white guys.
The other night, say I did Cara Klenk's show, which is If You Build It. It was myself, Pete Holmes, Eddie Pepitone. Who else was on? Sashir Zamata, who's on SNL, and Cara. So that's 5. That's 3 of us were women, 1 woman of colour, and Eddie Pepitone and Pete Holmes. So that's a normal night there.
And
that's
who books it?
That one is Cara's gig. Cara
and how
Klenk.
would I ever get booked for that?
And her to just
no. I mean,
Twitter,
having not had this conversation.
Yeah.
How would I ever be getting booked for her gig?
So when I land into town, I either get my booker to go and just ask around on shows, or else if it's a comedian pal. So why I love stand up is like this: we would have been in the same town, or you're from the same community of pals, and you get in touch on Twitter and you go, "Hey, I see your gig." And they can look you up, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, I've the spot here." Or like I did Moshe's gig the other night. Moshe Kasher runs a podcast there as well. It's myself, Kumail, and his wife Emily, and that again sold out at UCB Franklin. And that's just like but like that's.
I look. First of all,
and he'd go up at the store a lot. He'd someone who goes up at
Moshe?
the store all the time.
Yeah. I will say this. It's a little bit of a moot point because I'm not going to start doing more stand-up in other clubs because I don't want to.
No, and I'm not saying at all. I'm just saying the idea of it being like it being your age or anything isn't a thing. It's more the type of you do your podcast, you go on the road, you just do the store when you're in LA.
Do the store, do the improv.
That's not. But the fact that it's your age or that you have children has nothing to do with the fact that you would know those people. It's more to do with being on your own on the road and only doing the improv and.
Yeah, I would never know the people that book anything because I'll never run into them.
But you could but once if you do festivals and stuff like that, like that's how I know so many of my comedy communities.
I'm not a big fan of festivals only because once again.
But your style of comedy doesn't have to be great for festivals.
No. It has nothing to do with that. It's and I say this respectfully, but I have been doing stand up for almost 20 years in the States, and so my insight in stand up in the United States may be a little more acute than yours, having only been here.
But like, say if you look at someone
years.
like Eddie Pepitone's like a club comic, and Eddie does festivals all around the world, and I got to know Eddie for the first time like 5 years ago. In Kilkenny in Ireland. We've met in Edinburgh,
the money London. In Kilkenny. Okay, so if we're gonna be honest,
to finish that point, and this is not at all me saying that you should be doing any of that stuff. I'm saying that's your personal thing.
I've had the offers. I choose not to.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll do it. I'm not gonna.
But you have to know where you focus your efforts. But also in terms of not knowing people, it's not because they're young up and coming comics that you would know. I think that's like. I think that's just because of the way you work personally, but there are lots of other comedians who are older than you. It's the way I work,
and they're young up and coming comics that I wouldn't know.
Some of them are like I'm in my 30s, like so some of the people on the thing are near to 40. I'd be surprised if anyone was maybe younger than 30 in the Netflix 15-minute specials. There aren't many. Like it's not.
I don't know any of those names.
They're not like Conan.
But you got to remember, they're also 15 years younger than me. Like.
But what I'm just saying in terms of that point is that the way you work doesn't allow you to maybe meet many people.
That is right, and I choose the way I work.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it fits into my lifestyle.
Fits your lifestyle.
Yeah,
exactly. But there are older comics of all different backgrounds.
Eddie Pepitone, I've known for many years.
Yeah,
he's a friend of mine, and I see him at the store often. But Eddie has a very different direction than I do in careers. There's. I will say I do find it shocking that it's half and half for those 15 hours for 15 minutes because I don't see there. When I'm in. But
maybe
clubs,
that's where it needs reflecting the Comedy Store because that's what's happening in comedy. That is the way it is at festivals and people selling tickets and also. Just to finish off that point, I suppose the point is if imagine for 2 years that was just extended a bit and maybe maybe it meant you getting one less spot on one weekend.
If you're
just imagine
Okay,
that
okay.
over those 2 years, within 2 years, the
One
Comedy
less spot
Store
over 2 years?
one or
week?
two more spots. Oh no, for you less, but then maybe
Yeah.
1 or 2 more spots for women at the shows as you go along. So rather than 1 or 2, it became 4 on lineups out of 15 comedians.
What you're missing in this argument is that I will give all my spots at the stores to all the women. I'll call in and I'll give all my spots to the women, and then I'll go to another club. And what you're missing is that people will simply go to where I'm going. Like, that's what you're missing. So like,
I'm not missing that because you'll still be on at the Comedy Store.
No,
I feel like there's this idea if you have to give up one night
No. I'm
a
not
week,
saying no.
you might.
I'll give up whatever you want to give up. But the problem is, if I want to go up, and you're saying, and I'm saying willfully, I gave that spot up. The club that I then go to. So like the Laugh Factory did
your
that with
audience,
Dane.
the people
They
who
kicked
want to
Dane
see
out.
they say but no, that's about kicking out. So let's stay away from anything where there's like a protest or people losing their jobs or something
Well,
going wrong.
if we're not doing this on merit based, and we're simply saying it is an agenda where we are giving 5.
But they will be merit based. If I go up and I'm shit at the store,
it's not merit based.
But I'm not even allowed to go and prove myself.
Well, yeah,
so
you
there
are.
isn't even allowed. I think if people want to go and see Bert,
I'm going to make sure you get past the fucking store before the end of fucking March. And then you will start saying, "Who are these shit female comics they're putting up?" And you'll go, "They're better female comics."
So here's the thing: if you
I didn't mean, by the way, I didn't mean like any of the women I know that work at the store ship female comics. But I'm saying like...
No, if people come to the store to see good lineups and they see 1 or 2 famous people, they will continue to do that. But imagine if it was also over the course of the next 2 years, giving opportunities to, you might be a little bit further down the chain. For example, me, I'm further down the celebrity chain to you or what you can sell in America. But imagine if I got a spot, and that would be, of course, every time someone gets a spot, if there are only a certain amount, you're taking away someone from...
I don't know why Catherine Ryan isn't working at the store.
But
Catherine
I don't know probably
her.
is now anyways, but she's not here a lot. But if in that situation, that's just one... It's not talking about some giant takeover or an agenda. It's literally on a night of 15 comedians, 4 instead of 3. Now, if you'll still be on over the course of the weekend, you'll still get to hang out with your buddies. Maybe one of those shows you'll go over to the Haha. And if people are hell bent on seeing Bert, of course they'll follow. They'll want to know where Bert is on at that weekend.
By the way, I'm using me as an example.
But they also
no.
It's a lovely example because you're someone who has a big following. But also, if you're not on that weekend at the Comedy Store and you weren't available, maybe you're out touring. And they just went to see Bert, they wouldn't go to the Comedy Store maybe that weekend. But if they knew the lineups were going to be good, and in general at the Comedy Store they know they're going to have a good night out.
So this is the same argument for the taxes almost, is like, do what's right.
Because it'll be it's not a big overhaul. It's tiny little changes, and that's all a lot of us are asking for, is just tiny little changes that help a bit.
You know, it would be much better if I got to pick the woman who took my spot.
Oh, Bert! But no one's taking your spot. It's just there are sometimes not spots available.
You're not gonna. There's no one below me. Meaning, like, I am probably there. There's a break off where the people that are not making as much money as I am, they need those spots. They're not giving up those spots. Out of their dead cold hands will those spots come.
Of course.
That's all they've got is these spots in LA, and that's what they're doing, hoping to get discovered. The only people that would be willing to hear this agenda rationally are like me and my friends, where we're like, well, I definitely by the way, just truth be known, when I first got past to the store, I told Adam, bro, I will not be beating your ear down for spots. When I have something that I'm working on, I'll hit you up a bunch.
Yeah.
But I understand you are slam packed with people trying to get spots, and that is not me. I can get them at the Improv. I can get them at the Haha. I love working here, but I'm not going to be all over you.
Also, it's also good for us if you gig too much in any one venue. It's not good for your comedy. Like you were saying, it's not good for you to test your material. Like if you're just doing material in one place, it's the same as not gigging your show on the road. You're playing to the converted, preaching to the converted. It's like when you do new material to fans, you're like, I'm going to have to do this to not fans to work out if this is actually funny.
Yeah, that's mostly why I do go up at the store, is that the store is a very diverse, like the OR is different than the main room, and the belly room is different
types of people.
There's very different types of people who go to the 3 different shows. But yeah, and I noticed that doing stand up in London. It was a a tad bit different. Not really. You know, the problem is that podcasting has gotten your voice out to so many people that people, you know, when I went to London, I just was like, oh, I'll fucking throw a show up one night.
Yeah, fun.
And it was packed, and they were like
podcast sales. So like, even some girl got in touch on Twitter about your podcast, and again, I don't listen to podcasts, I listen to audiobooks. She got in Twitter with you, and she was like, you should put Aisling on the show or something like that. But I'm always surprised by, I feel so out of that world in the same way I don't look at, I don't know anything about YouTubers. So I'm so out of the loop. But like, I got into an Uber the other night and someone was like, well, we had that, you know, Candy McFarland. That's a name I made up, but it's like someone who's a YouTuber. And I was like, who that? Like, they were talking to me like it was Pierce Brosnan, which is like, I hate that that's the first celebrity that came into my head, Pierce Brosnan. But like they talked about it as if it was like some big set, and I had no idea.
Well, that's one of the big not problems, but one of the things that a lot of road comics are having an issue with is that YouTubers are taking over weekends and they're selling out.
Yeah,
they're selling out their $100 ticket prices.
And then do you adapt? Do you complain about it, or do you adapt and move? Do you know do you adapt and move?
I adapt and move personally, but the vast majority of comics just complain.
Yeah.
Just
well, that's why with this, what's nice about, and I'm not sure if this conversation was in any way interesting for the listeners, because it's very
by the way,
much,
it's been, I think it's an interesting conversation because it's a conversation that's happening in America with what would happen with Black Panther, and people saying now black movies aren't going to be the unicorn. When a black movie does well, it's not unicorn. It's across the board.
It doesn't have to be like, oh, black movies don't do well.
But don't get me wrong. Okay, hear this from with hands up as much as you can. Okay, I am a white male, probably white privilege through and through. I am definitely a 1%er. Okay. From a human perspective,
and that's not a bad thing.
No, it is. In this country, it is a horrible thing.
But also, it's,
hold on. Let me finish my sentence. I am also just a human being, right? Like, so like I just am a human being who I don't look in my mirror and go, God, this white skin's awesome today. So like, but when Black Panther was happening, I got jealous that I didn't have something like that. And then it took me a beat to go, oh wait,
I only have things like that.
All
everything is for me.
I've had this my whole life. But there is a moment where I went, I wish they did something like this for white people. Wouldn't that be cool? Like, I really thought that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's
everything is for you.
Yeah.
Even things like my sister, as I said, works in costume, and we, tights. So like ladies' tights, the nude color and the flesh color is for white people. So even the idea of nude and flesh, everything is set up for us.
Yeah.
Like even Band-Aids are set up for white people. Even nude underwear
We're stepping
is
into
for white
a
people.
bit I once had that I had to get rid of but baby powder.
But everything's like our whole world is, and that's sometimes why these conversations are interesting. And again, I would hope someone has the conversation I'm having with you now with me about race as well, because I grew up in an all white country where you didn't even know you were born, everyone was so white. And so there's loads of things that I've had to really ask questions about, sometimes shamefully, sometimes embarrassingly, that I don't know enough about race. And again, I didn't grow up in a school where there were other types of colours of skin. I just didn't know about a lot of black people's experience. Everything from like the representation of hair on camera. I had no idea what like most like people have to do with their hair at night. I had just no idea any of those things existed. I remember working in New York for a hair salon when I was a student, and I was selling vouchers on the street for this hair salon, and a woman came over to me, she's like, do you do black hair? And I was like, of course. How silly, thinking like, of course it's not a racist hair salon. And only afterwards, when I went back to my boss, they were like, oh, you didn't tell them we did, because we actually don't here. And I was so shocked because I didn't even know that black women had to do something different from my ignorant Irish background. And I think that sometimes all we have to do is just like be open to seeing what we've had. And that doesn't mean that the other person will always be right. In this situation, I feel strongly about this, but it's also really nice to talk to you about it, because God, I know what it's like to I'm in this crest of a wave that has a lot of opportunity. It's a really good time to be a woman in comedy in certain respects, but it's never as good as, like, even at its best time to be a woman in comedy, it's still not as good as being a man. And so that loss, it feels like you still have to work that bit harder in a different way.
It feels like though that when it comes to gender in comedy, the only acceptable solution or answer is that men have done this. Like men, that men can help this. I would spin it. No, but the default comes to, I think the fault lands on every man, and every man's going, I didn't do anything. Like, I think sometimes no one, and by the way, this is once again my Black Panther moment, but no one sees how hard it is to be a white man in comedy. I remember doing Last Comic Standing, was a show we had in the States that was like,
I know, launched. It's like a competition, isn't it?
It was a competition. Yeah. And I went on the show and I was like, oh my God, I'm fucking funnier than every single person on here except for 10. I could get on this. This will be easy. And then I got there and I was told, no, you're going against John Heffron and Gary Goldman. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, Ant's definitely getting on the show. He's gay. Kathleen's getting on the show. Like, it's we need a woman, we need a black guy, we need a gay guy. And I remember going like, oh, so this isn't a comedy competition. And they're like, no, it definitely is, but it's not. We can't just can't put the funniest people on. We have to put people that are different that are funny.
So here's where,
which I remember hearing that going like, I was like 30 years old.
But you know what that does though? It's that short-term loss, especially for you at that point, for a greater gain in the next 4 years. And at that time you're like, but this is my career. This is me. This is my thing. Yeah. But actually, for example, when I took over the captaincy on 8 out of 10 Cats, which is this panel show, a lot of people in America watch it, there were definitely probably a lot more seasoned comics who could have taken that spot, who would have been dying for that spot, but I got it. And they needed a woman to do it. And they did need a woman. But now, I was the first woman. Catherine had done one on like a panel show that ran for a bit, but I was the first female captain on a show, and there are like 10s and 20s of those shows. And again, there were lots of male comedians who would love that spot, but I was the first one on that. And even if I wasn't as good as someone, the next person who can see who's going to come up behind me will be bloody amazing. And now I hope I did a really good job, and I really worked hard at it, and I tried to make sure things were balanced and stuff. But that short-term hit will have done more than, and seeing yourself on screen, like the amount of my black friends who are going, God, you don't know what this means just to see Black Panther up there, to have yourself represented on stage. And maybe Black Panther isn't the best movie in the world, and maybe it's prevented another movie that's amazing, written by a white guy, that's the best action movie you've ever seen, with the best possible cast, who would have been better at the guy who plays T'Challa in it. Maybe, but God, that means so much more that got commissioned, and that's the one they're selling at the moment. And it's so hard. I get it, how hard it is for you or someone when you're like, but this is me. I've worked so hard. And again, I'm speaking from.
That's not me saying that. I'm definitely very grateful. No, but it wouldn't be bad if it did. It wouldn't be bad if it did. But there are definitely. I have a lot of friends,
especially
white friends.
At the moment, and I get it.
Who are like, so wait, you're telling me I can't get that because I'm white?
Yeah. And
that's
kind of for like the last couple of months or couple of years, the experience that most of us as the other have always had.
Okay. And so it's more like, so this is a true reparations.
It's not, and this is not about coming and going, you don't deserve it, or ha ha ha, this is what it feels like. It's not from any sort of laughing at the side point of view. Okay. But that experience is what all of us have always had, because there's been the 90% for the 20%, and then we've had to share the scraps. So you've either got a black comedian or a woman on a bill, and it's you or the other, and everything. And that is the feeling it feels like. And you don't deserve to feel like that no more than we have. But that's kind of what's been going on, and maybe we haven't had our platform or voice to say it, and now there's this messy bit which might only be a couple of years.
It does sound a little bit like someone took my ball, so now I get to take your ball.
No, but
you know what it feels like to not have a ball.
There's this lovely quote that equality to people who are privileged feels like a loss.
That's a pretty great quote.
It's a brilliant, because that's exactly what it is. You experiencing equality feels like a loss because you've had privilege for a while.
Like
that is what's happening in the same way when I'm like, oh, I wish there were, like, say for example, so much stuff is getting as an actor, so much stuff is getting cast now, more diverse. So on an acting job, and I've been an actor for 15 years, almost 16 years. I went to drama school. I moved a different country to train for 2 years. I have done every shitty acting job and I've done the door on theatre. I've done exactly this. I've worked the door, metaphorically and really, in theatres as an actor. And now I'm at this position where I've got a bit of clout and I'm going for these parts, and sometimes it will go to someone of colour, and I have to sort of go, that's in terms of my stand-up career, I'm sort of at a point where it's kind of good for women. They need women now more, and so I work harder, so hopefully people won't ever see me as a token when I'm on stage. And I'm like, yeah, I did get here because it was a spot for women, but I'm owning it now while I'm here. But in terms of acting, I'm at the tail end of where they need a white girl to be in something, or they need. So
where, just out of curiosity, where do we draw the line with this? I mean, because it won't be in anything.
I think it's really feeling it out without drawing a line.
Do we start, could we start saying, listen, we do need more white people in the NBA?
NBA is at basketball. Excuse my ignorance. Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to do something with sports just because I'm so ignorant about sports.
But like something that is truly merit based, like sports. Like comedy's subjective.
Yeah.
So objective.
So here would be a perfect example with sports. You say, for example, there are positions in colleges for sports people from poor backgrounds because they can play sports. Now that is taking away a place for maybe a white person who is really academically clever. But there are spaces.
But it's a sport. It's a sport, so it's definitively. I've always messed up subjective and objective.
These places.
What's objective? Objective is where it is cut and dry. Subjective is where it's like up to you to make the decision.
Yeah, exactly.
So comedy, art is subjective. It's very easy to say we need affirmative action in these spots. We need more women. Women are just as funny as men, and no one can argue that because it's subjective. But clearly, you couldn't do the same in football, where we go, we need 5 spots for women. Women are just as physically.
So the problem is not sort of, sometimes the issue is to be done in the interim period, because it's the middle period where it's really hard to get ahead. You can come from nothing and play football really hard, but to actually get ahead, to actually say, for example, I'm going to use the word audition for college football with the big spaces. Yeah. Sometimes you have to have access to a car, a parent who's going to drive you there, enough food to make sure that your nutrition is good, so you can actually play to the best of your ability.
Probably
and you're
not.
cut out.
I think Pele came from nothing.
You are cut. Oh, there's always going to be an example of someone who.
Well, but that's sports. Sports in general, the most talented always rise to the top.
But also, he was in a town where there was loads of support for football. Yeah. And so they would have access to loads of playing and so that is, he did have something else. He did have something else.
But my question,
so what I'm saying is that what's nice to think is that the sports at the top invest backwards in equipment. And again, I am basing most of my metaphor on Friday Night Lights and having watched Friday Night Lights, that there is some kind of investment downwards to make sure that you do bring up the best people, and that the best people get to fulfill their achievement.
It wasn't like that at always, and maybe that's what you're talking about.
That's what happened.
Maybe that's what the Jackie Robinson is. There were white guys going, so you're telling me I can't be on the team. And I think what they were saying,
sorry to bring up OJ, but that OJ does a lot to make sure that let's invest in black players, and let's work our way backwards. And that's where you and why OJ was such a big deal for so many people who were like, oh, I think I'm
understanding your analogy a tad bit.
I'm sorry if I messed it up because of sport.
No, it made sense, because there was a time when Jackie Robinson got into the league where they're like, you're telling me I can't play? And they're like, yeah, he's better than you are. And he's like, yeah, but he's black.
Yeah.
And I don't think I definitely don't believe that. I believe the most talented people should be playing, but had there not been an affirmative action in baseball, where they're like, guys, we got to let these black people play. Then maybe I would not. Maybe I wouldn't see equality the way I see it in sports.
And that had to. And I'm sure. Can you imagine when that was happening? All these football players and baseball players who had trained their whole lives, who'd run around pitches in their grandma's house and their granddad's house, and all the little leagues they've done and all this stuff, and then they get there and go, sorry, there's this amazing black guy, and you go, what? Black people can play now? But I've worked really bloody hard, and this was my big shot.
Yeah, and
this
they're
was
saying
my
you're
big
simply
shot,
not as good.
and you're simply not as good. But we also have to make more room for people of colour in football now, and we've started investing in them. You go, what? You're investing in them too? Why aren't you giving any equipment to me?
Yeah.
And you got,
I guess
and that's kind of what it is, and that's their only small little moments of slightly helping us out. And this is not. I think this is where. I don't want women to be doing this on its own. This is why I'm bothering having this discussion with you, is because I need sometimes men's helps on shows where there's only me on it, and if I'm getting shouted down, I need like some of my pals who are male comedians who I gig with and who know I'm really good, but clearly something's gone wrong at the start, to just go, 1 second, Aisling, what were you saying? And I'm like, okay, a moment of confidence, and now I can go back in the game, and now I'm back in, and all I needed was a little help or a little hand, and most people just need a little hand. We're not asking you to take us on despite, because comedy is, the audiences will laugh. Sometimes they do laugh more when someone's famous, of course, but people love laughing, and they will laugh at a funny thing.
I've seen bad comics. I've seen bad. There are bad comics. There are plenty of bad comics.
There are so bloody many of every race, religion, and gender. But what I mean is that once you're up there, you can't get a hand or you can't get a help from just getting the spot. You have to make your jokes good. You have to write your stuff, and audiences love laughing. Even if someone's not famous, they do love laughing. And then they go, do you know what? I actually liked her. Blah blah blah. And they go, oh God, it was great to see Judd Apatow on as well. And I bloody love Bert. I listened to his podcast. But they got to see 1 or 2 more women, and they've just got to, so that's I suppose, it's just a little bit of a helping hand. And of course, there'll be people who lose out, and it is sad. And I, in the same way, sometimes I'm like, oh God, I really thought I was great for that part. But this is where the industry is right now.
So what about a black James Bond?
Yeah, if it was Idris Bloody Elba, yes please. Also, James Bond is a fictional character. He doesn't have to be any colour. Yeah. And especially now, the main thing is that he's handsome and charismatic. It would be worse, anything would be worse than an uncharismatic Bond.
Yeah.
The idea that James Bond is white when they're based on books written 40 years ago, and they're now made into movies where people jump across buildings. You're like, guys, and again, that's a situation where that Idris Elba would sell more movies.
I'd see Idris Elba.
I'd see Idris Elba.
I'd see a black James Bond I'd see it just because it was a black James Bond. I don't think I've seen a James Bond movie in a while. Yeah. If they did a black James Bond, I might be like, I'd be interested to see what that looks like.
This no longer looks boring. Or oh, come on,
but I'll tell you what, when I was a kid, I don't know where I said this. I'm sure I said this somewhere, and I'm sure it's going to come to bite me in the ass. But when I was a kid and I found out that Peter Pan was played by Sandy Duncan, I got fucking pissed.
Who's Sandy Duncan?
She's a chick with one eye, and she played Peter Pan. And I was like, wait, I go, that's a girl? I go, hold on, why would they take a boy's way and give it to a girl? And they were like, oh,
and traditionally it was always played in pantomime and everything. Peter Pan was always played by a girl because of the size, because on theatre and on stage it was always played by a woman, because she would look small but still be an adult actor in comparison to the adults and the men. It's Idris Elba, amazing, but also I love the idea. So what were you just saying there about your childhood? Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, nothing. I got really upset when I found out that they took the role from a guy and gave it to a girl. I was like, I
feel like something really happened oddly though, because when I was growing up in Ireland, the shows we watched, and I listed them out recently, and people are like, oh, so all black shows, and I was like, oh, I didn't really think of that. Moesha, Sister, The Cosby Show, these were always. That's So Raven was about 4 years younger than me really, but my sister watched That's a Raven. But these were the main shows on Irish TV. We had 2 channels, and these were the main shows, and they were just family shows, or it just didn't matter what colour skin people were. And then something's happened where that's just gone, and you're like, why? Where are those? I'm quite surprised that it sort of seemed to go backwards.
Well, I don't think it. I don't know. I don't know. I never watched those shows.
They were the biggest selling shows in America.
No, not in America.
Oh, well, they were huge in the UK. Fresh Prince,
Fresh Prince,
Moesha,
was big in the United States.
Was huge.
Moesha, so they were all run by one network, the UPN. UPN was a black network, and they're made
huge. Remember Ireland, white country, but they were just huge.
Well, wasn't Dave Chappelle said that Irish are the blacks of Europe?
Well, I have a bit of stand-up I'm working on at the moment about this, because I feel like Irish people really like that, because we do like to be thought of as black, and we're like, guys, did you get on the boat or were you put on the boat? Because we're not. We'd had a really not as bad a time as black people. Like
so the UPN Jamie Foxx was on there. Jamie Foxx had a show. It was really Malcolm and Jamar Warner and Malcolm and Eddie. Malcolm and Eddie was a show.
Keenan and Kel, that was another one.
But yeah, then that meshed in with the WB. I really don't watch enough television to know how race is represented in television these days. I don't. So I would be idiotic for me to say, but I will say the Black Panther thing. I got upset when I saw kids tweeting fake beatings at the.
Oh my God! Or I'm scared to go into the, and you're like, oh, that fear, like it's all that fear.
Oh, hang on. The fear comes from a genuine place in this country,
but it's stoked up, and it makes it's like bacteria on top of bacteria, in that it feeds and feeds and feeds, and it creates all of that fear mongering, creates more fear, creates more violence, because then it rather than us all going, guys, we're not so scared, let's just go out, let's just go to the cinema, and that's how you beat it. And of course I understand when all these things are happening, but God, it's stoked up in this country like coal into a furnace.
My daughter went to the premiere of Black Panther, like the night, not premiere, but the night it came out. Her and 3 friends, all white girls. There was a part of me that I was like, what theater are you going to? There's part of me, I'm a dad.
You're a dad, of course.
And she came back. I said, how was it? And she said, Daddy, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I said, were there a lot of black people? And she looked at me and she goes, I don't know. And what do you mean you don't know? And she goes, I don't know. I wasn't really looking. I was just there to watch a movie. I said, you weren't paying attention to how many black people? I definitely would have gone in and gone, oh, there's a lot of black people. Or this is not a lot of black people. That's fantastic.
And that's even what better. It does, doesn't it? Like, that's what I even noticed. Like, again, I'll be 34 in 2 weeks. I'm noticing now a difference of people 10 years younger than me in terms of sexuality is the big one I notice a difference in. Because, again, a lot of people say when you fight really hard for gay rights, and then 10 years younger people than you are like, no, I don't want to be known as gay or straight or anything. I just want to be whatever I want. And you're like, what? But we fought so hard. Yeah. But actually, that's where you go, God, imagine it does kind of open up my mind a little bit more. How much of my sexuality did I not explore because it had to be one or the other? You had to be straight or gay. And now people in their 20s are sort of getting to reap the rewards of that, and maybe we don't get to control it. And they're like, they get to go, oh, it's not about whether I'm gay or straight. I'm just really annoyed at that girl who dumped me or that boy who dumped me. It's just that, and now I'm just worried more about being dumped, and then or like, what do I do on a first date rather than who the first date is with. It is odd though that for how long have humans been around? How long have humans been around? What? I cannot tell you. I don't know.
But do you think the sexuality is a modern construct, that sexuality was?
A lot of the time, yeah. If you look back at like ancient Roman times, right, they all had like, in fact, having sex with your male friends is like, why wouldn't you? Like, if you took out the stigma of being gay and you're just really horny, you'd be like, oh man, can I just pop my penis in for a little bit? But imagine if you took away, you'd be like, yes, and then can I put mine into yours? Yeah, or let's just like, they say wank in the UK, let's just jerk each other off. Oh my God, what a lovely way to spend Saturday with your pals. And then let's go for a run.
All I can picture is me staring Segura in the face, just jacking him off.
Why not? Why not? You'd be like, imagine if you got to do that and there was none of the like about it, because that's what you've been brought up around. That you'd be like, oh my God, get to hang out with my best friend, don't have to go out with him, we both get to jerk each other off, and then we get to go and have some burgers or something.
And no one tells us how many women should go up at the store. Because it's just 2 dudes jacking each other off.
Because I'd be still coming in. You'd be too busy.
You realize feminism would become a totally different thing if men could jerk each other off. What
happened was I'd be waiting at the store and people were like, oh my God, Bert and Tom Segura is late. Is there anyone around who can fill in for them? I don't know where they are. I'm like, I think they've been jerking each other off. Can I jump on them? They're like, yeah, that's no excuse. You get to do half an hour because you can get both of their 15-minute slots. Yes.
So I'll say an American comedian and you tell me their counterpart in England.
Oh, okay.
Like
if
who,
I can.
you're like, yeah, like
an equivalent.
Like who's our Joe Rogan is your.
Ooh, Joe Rogan. So again, a lot of this might depend on me actually knowing the stand-up. So Joe Rogan is quite like who would be the equivalent?
He commentates for the UFC.
Yeah,
He's a bow hunter.
I'm
he lifts weights.
I'm trying to think. Let me come back to that one because there's loads of big UK male comics. I'm just trying to think about it.
I'll say one comparison. That you tell me if I'm accurate.
Yeah.
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
Andre Vincent.
I don't know who Andre Vincent is.
You know Brett Vincent?
Oh yeah.
Andre's his older brother.
Okay.
He's more of like he does a lot of street performing, but very. Oh no,
cerebral. Patton Oswalt, an equivalent would probably be maybe who's maybe quite a nice storyteller comedian like Patton. Maybe this would be too far. This would be too the difference in this would be too big. But I love Billy Connolly. He's an amazing Scottish comedian. He's like one of the biggest comedians ever.
Okay, Amy Schumer, is that your
Amy
Catherine?
Schumer? Maybe Catherine Ryan. Even though Catherine's Canadian, but she's UK based.
Oh,
yeah.
She's not even from this UK.
She's been in the UK for about 12, 13 years now.
But
she's
so
Canadian.
We shouldn't have an accent, right?
Sorry?
Shouldn't have an English accent?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
I mean, there's little soft bits
so
to
maybe
her
I do know
accent.
who she is.
Let me see who else would be. Yeah, so that'd be like I think Catherine is like gonna take Joan Rivers' crown. Catherine's very she just looks glamorous on stage. She does lots of stuff about celebrities. She's very topical as well. She's amazing.
Okay.
Give me someone else. Patton Oswalt, who'd be a good example?
Chelsea Handler.
Chelsea Handler. Oh, who'd be like Chelsea? Maybe Sarah Millican. I know some people will go, what? But remember, Sarah Millican did have her own chat show as well. So she does a lot of interviews and stuff like that, as well as touring and stuff.
Okay.
Chelsea Handler's a hard one to do an example of because she's very American, and that American energy comes with a lot of like sass. Like you're very American in your energy.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find it. Like the equivalent would almost be more on in terms like, so Sarah Millican's very English from the north of England, and it's kind of more it'd be very English, what you might describe as really English.
Oh yeah.
But maybe in terms of a success.
So who do you see yourself as? Like when you come over here, like that person's a lot like me. Like I
don't know. Probably like anyone who does maybe whimsical storytelling. I mean, when we were doing our specials, what was his name? He supports John Mulaney on tour. How have I forgot? Max Silvestri and I would maybe have very similar. He's on tour with John Mulaney at the moment. But like our styles maybe of storytelling and homely storytelling and stuff like that, and our childhoods would probably be equivalent. So I suppose it would be that type of tone of stuff. Who I would be. That's my tone of. That's what I like talking about. Maybe silly life stories.
Yeah. Well, I find it so interesting going over there. When I did my one time I did there, the Comedy Store was very rude to me. Because
the Comedy Store in the UK is a different beast. Like I wouldn't gig there much. Like there are amazing clubs in the UK. Next time you're over, we'll get you some really solid gigs and you can see UK audiences.
Next time I'm over, I'll just do a theater. I'm going to do one night and go home.
Yeah.
But the theater offers there are shit.
It's surprising because the comedy pays more in the UK than it does here. Oh my God. Like, I'm not sure what it's like going on the road, but like TV and stuff like that is ridiculous.
I got offered, I'll show you the number. I'll just show you the number, but I'll tell you.
Oh God, this is like such an American conversation.
Yeah.
Show me your cash. Show me your money.
No. I got offered to do the Soho
Theatre, yeah.
Soho Theatre. What's that seat?
It depends. But that wouldn't be that. I mean, that wouldn't have. It's a lovely comedy space, but it wouldn't have really big. Maybe 250 be the biggest there.
Yeah.
Or maybe 150.
They wanted to do nights and add nights and whatever. But it was only that per night.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you just go in and just do a much bigger venue?
For one, I think it's because it's a much smaller venue, and it's like that'd be like coming over here.
And doing
like say Russell Brand did Meltdown for 3 nights here. Do you know what I mean? He did like last 2 weekends ago.
What was this recently?
Yeah, 2 weekends ago.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, but like what I mean by that is there aren't, unless you're like, depending on what type of style of show you want to do, it might fit a venue. You might have more fun doing 3 small ones that are more intimate, or you might just want to do one big one, and then I did a
really great room there last time that I think was about the same size. and it was just
Leicester Square Theatre.
No, I have no idea. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was a ball. It was a. Actually, I take this back. I should really know the name of it. It was a communal comedy. Like it was like a comedy room where the comedians.
The Bill
donated-
Murray. It's called
the
the Bill Murray.
the
Yeah, that's
Bill
really
Murray.
near my house.
Yeah. It was really great.
Yeah.
There was one bitch.
No,
female
but so
comic.
there's say for example a small room, but you'd get more. You'd get a lot
was
out
fun.
of it.
It was
yeah,
fun.
it was fun. Exactly.
It was fun. I think I donated my money to the club.
But that would have been like 20 quid or something. That's a smaller something like that.
It was,
For the whole. Oh, you mean you donated the money to the club from the whole? You did the whole show. You did your whole show.
Yeah, it was like $20 tickets.
Yeah.
It's like it
Yeah.
wasn't a ton
Oh,
of
sorry.
money,
I thought
but-
you meant doing a spot or something like that.
No. I would never do spots in London. I don't have an interest in doing spots. The energy for that is too fucks with my head. When I went to the store, they wouldn't let me in the door because they didn't know who I was. Because apparently American comics have burned that bridge of going like, I'm really big in the States, just put me up, and then they suck.
Yeah, I wouldn't connect the Comedy Store in London to the UK comedy circuit.
Really?
Yeah, just wouldn't. I
It
don't
was a
think
pretty
it's
fun
indicative
room to do.
of-
I ended up doing
Yeah,
show.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it's like it's one club in London which has loads of great clubs.
Yeah.
Rather than
Rather than
say here there feels to be like the Comedy Store and then all the other different types of clubs in LA.
Yeah.
It's very much it's genre dividing a little bit, or feels at
it's
the moment.
a little genre dividing.
Whereas that's not as I think maybe the alt circuit definitely mushed into the mainstream, and that's a lot to do with how much comedy's on TV in the UK. And how many different types of people are on TV as well.
Yeah, I saw some alt. Like I saw this guy, boy with tape on his face.
Oh yeah. He sells. He's a huge he sells out stadiums and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That wouldn't fly over here.
It bloody would. See,
No,
I think
not
that
at the store.
Oh no, not in a spot. But like he rarely does spots.
You couldn't come in and do just.
I suppose the reason is spots are longer there, so it's worth your time leaving the house.
Yeah, you couldn't do 7 minutes.
Yeah, but nobody open micers do 7 minutes in the UK.
Yeah.
You would never. You don't leave like. That's what's so odd here is that when I'd see you, so
Yeah.
you're like, I sell out, I made loads of money, and you're like, oh, but you're only doing 15 minutes.
Is that what you accrued from this comedy? This podcast is that I sell out and make loads of money?
Yeah, that's what you've been telling me.
No, this is a fucking. I guess that's what I'm virtue singling. No, my point in talking about money is that everything is money derived here, and so when you look at a lineup.
But I can make a living. I think people can make a living a lot easier in the UK. Here, like what certain TV spots and stuff pay wouldn't even pay your rent for a month.
No. Television has changed totally.
Yeah.
Like, I just got offered a voiceover for a cartoon this morning, and I was like, oh, there's no fucking way. Like between what I make for my podcast and what I make on the road, there's no TV show paying that. There's no TV show paying that.
And that's what I say about like going on at a weekend in the UK. That's how you pay your bills.
Yeah.
And you go on, but also not just how you pay your bills, but creatively, you leave the house and you go and you do half an hour. To leave the house and do 10 minutes of work in a night feels like pre-ejaculation. It feels like, oh god, I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I'm not running around down to Venice to do a spot in Santa Monica. So I'm like, what am I, 10-10?
Yeah,
what am I
yeah,
learning
yeah.
out of that? I'm not unless I'm like now.
Unless
I'll do
you're
it.
working it up for something or a TV spot.
So the way the money works in the States, let me explain, like just break it down. So the opener, the guy who goes first, the host, and this is on the road, gets $500. The guy who goes second gets $700. And then as a headliner, your first gig, your first run, you maybe get $1,000 to do a headlining gig that you have to pay to fly yourself out, and then they'll put you in a condo.
Oh my god, and flights are so expensive.
Yep.
So that's cutting into that.
Yep. And so then if you do that for a year, maybe you get to 1,200, maybe you get to 15. You're probably going to peak at about $2,000, and then the club. And these are the confusing things that you may not be getting told by about a lot of comics in this country, because they won't tell you this because they want you to think they're famous. Is that what the clubs do in this country? Is they paper a room, they have an email blast, they blow it out. Hey guys, free tickets, and so everyone signs up for free tickets, and it's a free show. Those are shit shows. Those are the shows where no one has a common theme. All it is that they're broke.
But also, if you even pay $2, mentally you're invested in a gig.
Yes, but they
if
don't
you turn
do
up
that.
and you can just leave because you didn't pay anyways,
and you don't give a fuck,
Yeah.
it's your night,
Yeah.
this is my night. So then you get $2,000. Now then you bump up. Maybe you can get to $3,000 with bonuses. That means you can do good radio. You can go on radio and you could bring in some 2-for-1 tickets, right? Which still means nothing. Then you get to $6,000, and at $6,000, that's where you pretty much stop. And so there are a lot of comics, and all the comics that are on those 15-minute ones, like the opener, Mulaney's paying him out of his pocket. Mulaney pays for him. He flies him out probably in his jet and pays for him. But like most of those comics,
he's a great comedian.
Stop it at. He's a great comedian. And if he's working with John Mulaney, we will definitely know more from him. John's a brilliant comic, and John hangs out with only brilliant comics. And then at $6,000, it kind of like levels off, and that's where I think most guys live that are names, meaning like guys where you'd go, I saw his half hour on Comedy Central. I saw his
that's
half
why
hour
you have
on...
here. There's a little bit of snobbery in the UK. So I'm an actor and I'm a comedian, and I do like dramatic acting as well. So I do like and writing, and sometimes it can be like, but which one would you pick? And I'm like, I never get asked that in America, because in America there's an attitude of just work as hard as you can, do as many things as you can, work as hard as you can, and I love that. I love that attitude here.
Yeah.
And there's also like, you always see stand-ups auditioning for things and auditioning for TV shows and acting parts, and there's never any snobbery about that, because you're also like, oh, if you can only make $6,000, you know, when you go out and about at the top end, of course you need to be doing an acting job, and of course you need to be trying and selling a script. Whereas in the UK, that tends to be a little bit more like, oh, you're writing a script now, are you? And you're in that? How? But I thought you were this. Yeah. Whereas and that's the one, that is not the one thing. I love America, I really do. But a thing about America I really love is a work ethic, and there's a lot less stigma attached to failure in this country. Way less. If you think
failed TV show for 7 years, but I only did that because I was at the $6,000 level on stand-up, and so I had to have a TV show to supplement. So I did a TV show. I did that. I had a development deal over at NBC for a couple of years.
But people wouldn't judge you because you're still trying and you're still working.
You're hustling.
In the UK, you're hustling, and that is exactly
the hustle.
it. And the fact that you had TV shows, they're like, oh, did it not work out? But mate, you had a TV show. Whereas in the UK, it's like, oh, remember when that didn't go too well?
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost like the stink of shame about it. And that can happen in Ireland as well. But they'll never get over that time that thing didn't go too well, or that bad gig you had. And it can really hold people back, because that fear of,
Oh,
it's a big...
failure is the most beautiful thing in this country.
And I love it. You get into an Uber in this country and someone will say, well, I've got a business, it fell apart, but I'm going to try again. You're like, high bloody five, mate. Yeah. But in the stigma attached to shame and vulnerability and putting yourself out there in the UK and Ireland definitely holds a lot of people back, and means we don't forget, because there's a little bit of Schadenfreude, a bit like, no, they're good. It's just I saw one of their things that wasn't actually that great, just so you know.
Oh, see, you look at anyone who's had any show and you go, God, man, that's awesome. Like,
because I know
what's
the
next?
other thing.
I mean, I look at everyone as like I can't wait to see. I remember running into Louis one time, going like, what are you working on now? And he was like, I just had a show that failed. And I was like, I know, but can't wait to see the next thing.
The next thing, exactly. Yeah. And that's what I love about this country, that it's kind of like, right, get up and get on then. What's the next thing? And there's less, you might feel awful about it, but that awfulness is coming from your own disappointment, not from like the people around you going, oh, did it not work out for you? Oh, that must be embarrassing. Is that embarrassing? Is it embarrassing? And you're like, well, of course it's embarrassing, but I'm going to keep going. And so I think to be a stand-up, in many ways, you have to have a very low embarrassment threshold.
Well, you just got to be able to fail. I mean, I went to the store the other night and failed. And you die on your ass, and then you go, right, well, tomorrow we go on again. So what's your plan with the States? Are you going to be coming here?
Yeah, I'm here until the end of March. I'm about to do a pilot in about 3 weeks time. I don't know when does this go out?
I'm going to put it up tonight.
Okay, so I'm not sure. I don't think I'm allowed to say anything about it, but tonight. But I'm going to do a pilot out here. I've got the Netflix show coming out, I think, in the autumn.
Fall?
Then in the fall.
Yeah.
And then what else is coming out?
Those were really successful for Netflix.
Which ones?
The
Those
shorter form stand-up.
I love it though. I think it's great because also, like you're saying, I don't have an hour that I really want to put out there, and when I do, I'd hope it'd be my baby. But 15 minutes, I've been doing 15 minutes in America for about 4 years now, and never mind how long I've been doing some of the material for in the UK. And I felt really ready. And did the shows go as well as I wanted them? Maybe they could have been a bit better. It's different doing it with cameras there than when you get to do a live gig.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of proud of the material I was doing. I was happy, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good calling card for me for the States. And I was sort of like, yeah, it was a really good, like I feel like that's what I was ready to do. And again, like,
and you shot those in Atlanta?
In Atlanta, yeah. And again, when you say about working the door, in terms of like, do I deserve one over an American comedian who's been working at the door of the Comedy Store? I've like taken out bank loans to fly to America and to do every single gig in this town for 4 years. No one's been paying me. It's all been out of my own money.
Yeah.
And I've flown over and missed opportunities. So in a way, we all do our own version of our, not that that makes me deserve it anymore.
No, everyone's got their own.
But do I feel like I don't, not, you know.
I don't think you need to work the door, and I'm not, I hope that what you accrued out of this conversation was
a good metaphor for things, because it also opens up the idea that there are different types of struggle, and that people do appreciate. Everyone appreciates struggle, and I think, and getting to somewhere with hard work. There's no nicer feeling than when you've worked hard for something and you get it. That's a lovely, like, oh my God, it's paid off.
Yeah.
That's a lovely feeling for any of us. And the disappointment of like, God, I worked hard on that would have been a nice one to get, whether it's an audition or a gig or whatever it is. And I always empathize with anyone who feels like that could have been their shot. That's an awful feeling to have. And that's very human for all of us to have that feeling, no matter where it's coming from.
I think that 15-minute thing will really blow you up, and
we hope so. And if not, I was really proud to have gotten there, and I feel like it's who I am. And if people don't like, what's lovely about the 15 minutes, if you don't like me, it's not 8 more of me. It's a load of different types of people. You go, yeah, not my thing, next. Oh yeah, great, some more of that, please. Yeah. And that's how there'll be enough of like different type of views there for everyone, you know.
Yeah. I think
I hope this conversation hasn't been too all about the stand-up and booking for your audience members.
That's all they want to hear.
Really?
Oh I mean, the people that listen to this podcast, for the most part,
are on dialysis machines.
No, they would. Just one dude. He's in Indianapolis. What's up, brother? I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, big shout out. What's his name?
I forgot. But
Mr. Kidney.
They just like this podcast has been very different than a lot of the ones I do, because it was an open, honest conversation. I think we started by you saying, you know, people need to listen, and I feel that wholeheartedly. Like I really feel like no one listens in this country.
You might agree, but you might not agree. But like, even listening to you, and it's really nice to hear your, like, of course, I get what you're saying, and that's a really nice thing to. And if that puts if our conversation now, even though we've sort of disagreed on a certain amount of things, if our conversation now means that when I go bloody hell, like we need another guy in this situation or something, just for a moment to stop and go, let's just have a little think about that, or approach it with a bit more kindness. And similarly, if you're on the road and you see a couple of names of some comedians that have been recommended to you to support you, I don't even know if that's something you do, and you look at one, you're like, do you know what, let's put that female comedian on. If she's been recommended, she's clearly good enough to get on the list. Let's just give her a go this weekend somewhere and see how that goes. And I will support. Rob Delaney, for example, only has female comedians support him, because he's like, oh, with my audiences, I get to introduce them to something, and something I care about. And that's just a really nice little nod from someone. It's not in any way patronizing, because we all are good at our jobs and we open well for him, but it's just a nice thing to have someone go, and you're like, oh, that's not taking space from someone else. It's just going, it's nice to get that little help or that little handout sort of thing, or that little moment where you just slightly think,
I think I probably won't be doing that ever. I mean, I'll bring women on the road with me, but I would never just say,
oh no, of course not. No, nor am I asking you.
Yeah.
But just in terms
no, I'm not. I don't think you were asking me, but I would never. I definitely. I am against making a brush stroke statement and going, I bring women. Sorry guys, I just bring women. I personally,
and that's for you.
Yeah, for me. I go, for Rob, that's fine. I think that's great for him. But I would feel like I would be disservicing people in general, as opposed to saying.
But say there are some comedians. What's nice is there are some comedians who only bring their friends on tour, and then
I would
there are
love
some
to bring my fucking friends on tour. I would love to have friends to bring on tour.
But like there are other comedians then who only bring new acts on tour, and they use it as an opportunity.
There's black comics who only bring white comics on tour.
Yeah, exactly. And then there are comedians who go, do you know what? Part of who I am is I like to give a leg up to people who are new. Part of what Rob is that he would like to give more space for female voices. Part because that's what he feels. So there are all those different ways.
I think that's cool that Rob does that. I go, like, I would never say, like, I only travel with Mexican comics.
The point of me saying that was to say that if any of those moments for me or for you coming out of this conversation, that just gives us pause for thought rather than bogging ourselves down with just our own prisms. With me, it's from always gone. The only prism I can look at things at immediately is from a female perspective. Yeah. Yours, both of ours, is from a white perspective. Mine is from a European and an Irish perspective as an immigrant in this country. Yours is someone who lives here.
I'm Irish also.
Sorry, you're Irish. Are you? Okay, right. Name 7 places in Ireland then, Bert. No. But then yours is from an American.
McDonald's.
Yeah. McDonald's in Dublin. But then yours is like from you're looking at me as someone who's like an Irish. I'm looking at you as an American Irish person, which is a very different experience of our culture, of our shared culture on St. Patrick's Day when it happens. That if these talks, and again the different voices that you hear, you see on screen, if they just give you a second to look out from a different pair of sunglasses than your own, that's never a bad thing. And that's a little bit of a chill pill for culture in general when that happens.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I have women work with me on the road, but then I'll be honest with them at times, and I think that's not welcomed in this culture. I won't say her name, but I was in a town recently with a woman who was opening for me. I don't think I really paid attention to the fact she was a woman until Friday night, when we're all partying, and as an older comic to a younger comic, I wanted to tell her, she's like, I'm going home. As a guy, if it was a guy, I'd be like, no, you're staying here. We're partying, we're hanging out, we're talking comedy, we're bullshitting, we're breaking. I'm doing an hour in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about my fucking act. I don't give a fuck, but it's a woman, and I can't say that to a woman. Also, as a 45-year-old man, no, you're staying here. What the fuck does that sound like? So I said, okay, go. And she left. And then Saturday night, I was like, hey, you gonna hang out tonight? She's like, I think I'm gonna go home. And I was like, okay. And then in my head I was like, hey, no one
have there ever been other comedians that you've done that for?
Every guy. I would never let a guy go home.
Yeah,
I would never. I'd be like, no,
think in that
you're on the road with me. I'm Bert. You know what I do.
I would really appreciate. So that's a really nice thing that you took that moment to go, oh, maybe this would be weird. But I would also really appreciate going, do you know what? Tomorrow, and maybe you do talk to someone differently, but you go, tomorrow, I would love you to stay out if you wouldn't mind. I'd just love to talk comedy with you.
I said to her, at the very end, I said, I just want you to know, I'm treating you differently because you're a woman. I would treat you, if you want to be treated like a man, I can, but I would feel very uncomfortable doing that. I would never want you to be somewhere with me. I understand that it's late night. I understand you're also a woman. You have to go home.
Yeah, on your own.
I would never want that. But I will say to you that this is happening, and I can't not acknowledge it because then I'm being out of integrity.
Yeah.
And but I definitely say,
because in that situation, that might give her a chance to go. And I'm not sure what happened, but just say in advance of you saying that.
She ended up staying and having a drink.
But that's a really nice thing to say to someone, actually, because you're also addressing it in a warm, open way and saying, look, I feel uncomfortable. And also then you give them the chance to go, listen, I've got someone dying at home. And you go, God, this whole time I thought it was about me, but actually there was something going on that you just didn't feel comfortable telling me because I'm your employer.
As a comic, I do my show, I party at the bar, I hang out.
Yeah.
That's when I have my first drink, is when I tell the machine story on the Late Show. And I definitely want to get off stage, talk about what I did, what the night was. I want to
and that can be like, I love drinking, for example, so I like staying out late. Yeah. So then there'll be some people who don't like hanging out, but my favorite thing, especially, I find it hard to wind down, so like that's my favorite part of stand-up is the community. And that's I love hanging out. And then there are some people, male or female, who are like, I go in, I do my bit, I go home and I write it up and don't drink. I always need, like, I always like having a beer before I go on stage, for example. Now to some other people they're like, no way, but for me that's a real, I like reminding myself that this should be fun. And something about a beer, it doesn't make me slur my words. A beer makes me go, oh yeah, we're all here to have fun.
I can't drink. on stage. I literally, I definitely have a lot, but getting ready for this, getting ready for this special I just shot, I was like, I'm not all there.
Yeah.
And then even for the special, we did 2 shows. First show I was stone sober for, but it wasn't my favorite show, wasn't my best show. But my next one, part of me was like, God, man, I should have a drink before it. And then I was like, no.
And also sometimes that comes with like, you've been doing it for 20 years. Sometimes you're like, oh, that party thing, it's now trained up on me to come. You know the way sometimes if you hang out with your friends, you don't even need a drink because you're like, yay! The fun comes immediately. And that's kind of like your audiences. Like that is what happens after 20 years. You need less, all the stimulants you need. You're like, no, I got this. I don't need what I thought I used to need.
All right, I'm gonna here's the deal. I'm gonna find a date. I'm gonna take you somewhere in this country to open for me, which is 2-person show.
Yeah,
that's all I do. I don't like doing a 3-person show anymore. We'll make it so that you don't lose money. You'll make some money. But
I'm all about money, Bert.
You'd be shocked. This fucking business has changed so fucking much.
Yeah. When
I first started featuring, I just bit the bullet. And I was like, I guess I'll lose money. This is like going to grad school. But we'll find a place to take you so that you can see this country and you can see some American audiences.
A whole new world. Don't you dare close your eyes.
Why don't you always talk like that?
Thank you. Thanks, Bert. After what? 3 hours of a podcast, you go, why don't you have a different voice?
I mean, if you can do that,
it'd be like Aladdin and Jasmine on a carpet together, Bert. The 2 of us would be like, a whole new world. And just like looking out at America. The whole of the Midwest. Some of them are here for free.
I got a 1,300 seater coming up in the middle of this month. In the middle of the country.
Well, congratulations, Bert.
It's a lot of money. I make a lot of money. You should know that by now.
Money. Oh, listen, you've never mentioned it, so it's really interesting to me that you bring it up.
How much money do you make? How much money do you make in a...
I'm not going to answer
how much money do you make on
any of these
8.5 cats?
I'm not going to tell you.
Do you make a lot of money on 8.5
cats? 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 cats.
I make a... Yeah.
Do you make more money there for TV or here for TV?
Oh, there for TV without a doubt. Yeah. Here is like, that's what I'm saying. Even like my Netflix special will just about won't even cover the amount of money I've spent coming over to the States trying to make it here. And I don't even know what make it here looks like, but I do enjoy. I've always loved America. Store. So I'll never really make it. I can make as many.
I'm gonna make sure you get past.
I don't want to. I don't want your help now.
I'm 11 years older.
I feel like I've had to do a 3-hour podcast to back.
No, I'm 11 years older than you. I'm like
happen?
a big brother to you.
Do you know
I'm gonna take you under my wing and make sure you're past at the store. I'm gonna get you a Death Squad T-shirt.
Do you know what's gonna happen? Do you know what's gonna happen? I'm gonna go on and go, listen, I got this girl, I got her, and then I'll go up and bomb and just die on my ass.
I'll go up right after you and bomb. Yeah. And then if you get past to the store, you definitely need to move here.
But if I get past the store, then you will have a solid string of Irish people every.
Oh, do you know how much I'd fucking love that?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Irish
I
people.
will bring some paper cash. They'll be Irish people, and they'll be like. But
I hooked up with an Irish chick one time.
Irish people love when Irish people do something else. That's what I'm saying. We're still getting over Colin Farrell and Britney Spears kissing.
I was trying to get Al Murray over here.
Oh, Al is lovely.
Yeah,
he's great.
He was just like. He was like, I don't know if it's going to translate. I think he did New York.
Yeah, it'd be working. That's where even if you're a big deal, coming over to anywhere and doing 10-minute spots is good because you just get to wangle, just see the in on the joke. So for example, here it took me a long time to realize if I get the MC at the start of a gig to mention that I'm Irish. Twice. So the next girl, she's Irish. So all the way from Ireland, here comes Aisling Bea. Yeah. It just gives that word Irish twice to the audience a second to go, what does that mean? The significance? Oh yeah, okay.
I'm not going to understand some words. I gotta pay attention.
Or like the accent or what's Ireland again. And I know that sounds so silly, but it just, even if you were to come over and I go, this next act's from America, he's got an amazing podcast. That even says something about maybe... again, the voice, but also the style that might come on. So you just prepare yourself slightly. And those tiny signifiers make such a difference. And in on a joke, like we were talking about earlier, can be so say, for example, Al Murray's thing is that he's a British pub landlord, which is a very UK
very specific.
But again, being a sort of macho man running a venue. Like it's quite like a Chicago bar guy. Like it's almost like an Always Sunny.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I told him it would translate. He could do it here.
You just have to work out the wording of it. And it took me about a year and a half of doing stand up in LA to work out what, like, I would not know from gig to gig if I would go on and people would find me the funniest weird thing in the world, or I would just bomb and it would just be like, what is that? And I couldn't work. And then slowly but surely it's a word here and in on a joke there, knowing when to slow down, when to just stay true to who you are, that you work. And those are from just small little, because you get to ruminate on it. You go and you do 10 to 15 and then you walk away and you go, interesting. And you kind of, sometimes I'd walk back to my Airbnb or something, and that walk home would be a little bit like, interesting, what happened there? And just that little kind of like, let it sink in. So that's that. Again, sometimes it's just an in on a joke, and that does come from like little gigs, especially in America when you're translating something that's really culturally like Al. But Al's a lovely, lovely guy.
He's great. He makes more money than I do.
Yeah, UK does. Oh, but you still make a lot of money, Bert.
I'm fucking. By the way, I was not trying to. Whatever. Everyone knows.
Cutie.
I love. One of my favorite things to do is we did it on the podcast one time. We all shared how much money we made on the same show.
Oh my God.
It was 4 of us: me, Ari Shafir, Big J Okerson, and Tony Hinchcliffe. And
is that because if you all took out your penises on a podcast, no one would be able to see or hear them?
You got it.
So you had to say how much money you made.
I think there's video of it, so we could have taken our dicks out. Ari would have won. Ari has a big
is this
dick.
filming this whole time?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I would have more angled myself this way if
How
I'd
tall are
known.
you?
5'7".
That's the average height.
I didn't totally know it was being filmed. Oh, how creepy.
Yeah. But we did that. We all said how much we made on this one gig at the same time. And then, but I love that kind of shit. I love it. me, Ari, and Tom lost transparency about what we made on gigs because we wanted to make sure we were getting paid fair.
That is
each
good to do, and I do that with my friends as well.
It can fuck you over at times. Yeah, like when your buddy tells you what he made, then you go to the same venue and you're making less, and you try to negotiate to get your rate up, and then they're like, "How do you know what he made?"
Yeah, and then you don't want to like dob your friend in.
Yeah, and then you do on accident, and then your agent reaches out to him. Yeah, that happened this weekend.
Yeah. But then it's also like, you know, it's no harm a bit of transparency in terms of pay and wages, because it's really hard. We're all self-employed, we're on our own, and you don't know what's normal. And sometimes there is an element to a lot of us that's like, oh my God, I'm so lucky to be making money from this silly thing.
Yeah.
That we're all, sometimes it's hard to know when to be incredibly grateful that we get to work and we get to do this job, and how I'm so grateful that I get to and I get paid for it. But then there's also an element of, I'm with a union, I do hours, there's a certain level of being paid for your service, and not being so grateful that you don't try and pay your own bills or know what you're worth, because producers and people at the top are not apologizing for their wage packets. So you shouldn't always, you know, apologize for that. You want to get paid for your product, which you've worked really hard at. So that 15 minutes, for example, I've toured around everywhere, and you know, you work hard, and then it's gone. Once you do that, you can't do that material anymore. It's not like a song with a musician. They get to tour it and tour a song. Or if you have a great story like Being the Machine, that you get to do it over. And I don't even know the story properly, but that in general, you don't get
13 minutes, I'll tell it to you. I'm joking.
Speaking of which, I really need to go for a wee.
I gotta go to the bathroom too. We did a nice 2.5 hours, right, Halston?
That was gorgeous. I really enjoyed my time, Bert. And God bless America. And I hope that everyone watches Ugly Delicious, the cookery show, and Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. And I think it's the start of lovely things happening. It's everyone putting their hands up for a second going, I'm going to put down my gun.
Well, I guarantee you they're watching Queer Eye for the Straight Guy now because you brought it up.
Yeah.
I guarantee you my whole family's in there either watching that
I brought it up for Bert's wife and his kid, the lovely little cutie, when I came in, that they should watch it. They were trying to watch Steel Magnolias, and I was like, no guys, get away from all that culture. Watch a reality TV show.
I'm going to take an attempt at saying your name one more time.
Here we go.
Aisling?
Yes.
Aisling Bea. We never got to talk about the beautiful letter you wrote to your dad, which I think like I've lost friends to the same thing, and one of those that letter was absolutely beautiful. I read it and I was like, I was really impressed, and And I felt like I know her, but I really only knew that you through those two girls
so
dancing.
I assume you've a lot of men who listen to this podcast. If you do, this is me genuinely not trying to plug my own work, but I wrote an article which you'll find on my Twitter or my Instagram about suicide and depression, and my dad took his own life, and I'd love for you to read it, just in case you're struggling or having a tough time.
Yep. We're all pretty honest on this podcast. I talk about anxiety and PTSD, and a lot of guys come up to me after the show and they're like, "Oh my God, thank you so much for sharing." But you should read that this letter. It was a letter or is it an article?
It's an article with a little letter at the end.
A little letter at the Now I'm fucking talking like you. Aisling, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much, Bert, and thank you for having me. You're an absolute treat.
This episode was brought to you by The Machine.